Hand it off, got the first down, and Moore still going. Smith still on his feet, got a little help from his friends. Touchdown Bears!
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Play fake. Man wide open. Touchdown! Jerry Jenkins!
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
O'Connell back in, rolling out, throwing, and what a catch! Reaching out for the end zone, and a touchdown by T.J. Sheffield.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Throws it down the field. It's caught at the 10, and this game is over. The Cowboys win it. C.D. Lamb.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on another week after yet another weekend of evidence in college football. Oklahoma State, Caleb Williams, LSU and away, Purdue and Baylor were some of the bright spots. UT San Antonio ranked for the first time ever. Not a good weekend for Iowa at Orgeron and Tennessee's crowd. Also, we'll hear today from Ross Dellinger on LSU and at Orgeron. Walter Abercrombie, former Baylor Hall of Fame running back, we'll discuss their running game that pounded Brigham Young for over 300 yards. What a weekend that was. A great crowd, incredible crowd. And then also we'll check in with Tom Dienhart, who writes for the Gold and Black Illustrated, and Purdue shocked Iowa. And then Dr. Derwin Gray, motivational speaker who spoke with Baylor Athletics earlier today on many things. Athletics, Brigham Young, Baylor, also America Today. All of that, Paul's top five, of course, at 5:55. Paul, if you could pick among the ones I mentioned, and I might be missing one because of just how I look at things, but who had the better weekend? Oklahoma State, Purdue, Caleb Williams.
I'm going to say...
Or maybe Baylor and even LSU.
LSU probably didn't have holistically the best weekend. I mean, they had a nice little win for Coach O, but ultimately that wasn't great. I mean, it's not great when you have to let go your coach at season's end, and you've decided to do that. I think it's Caleb Williams, and I think it's because he's given Oklahoma their identity back. They're a big play offense again. They weren't for the longest time this year. They just, with Spencer Rattler, they were not making big plays. They were not doing the things that we'd be kind of accustomed to seeing Oklahoma do. And while Oklahoma State had a great comeback against Texas and kind of do what they continue to do, I'm going to say Caleb Williams because he's put Oklahoma's offense back on the map.
I'm going to say Purdue without even blinking. I mean, they beat an undefeated number 2 team in the country. They're 4-2. They're well on their way to being, in a bowl game at the end of the year. And I just think that was a win. That you did it on the road, you did it in convincing fashion, and you did it in dominant fashion and didn't really leave any doubt. This wasn't a game where the number 2 team fell on a field goal at the last second or on a Hail Mary pass. This was a game where, Purdue convincingly won. It was low scoring. It wasn't, like they just blew the doors off of Iowa either, but, they won that game convincingly. So that's a bummer for the Hawkeyes. I know that the fan base has to feel like the air was let out a bit on Saturday with that result. But, I give Purdue a lot of credit for that win. And, elsewhere, I mean, I think the other things were impressive too, but I just think in terms of wins, that was the biggest one. But, I mean, Oklahoma looks like a different team now with Caleb Williams. They look more of what they've looked like the past few years with being able to, throw the ball around and also set up the run there for as well. And he brings a juice to them that Spencer Rattler just simply didn't bring to them. No. They're night and day a different team with him at quarterback, just in their attitudes, their approach, and just the excitement level versus when Spencer Rattler was at the helm. And I don't know why that is outside of Spencer Rattler's play, because it makes sense when, if he's throwing picks or making bad plays, and of course you're not going to be as excited. But, he wasn't always just playing terribly. But there's just something clearly different about Caleb Williams. And I think a lot of it is the fact that he can run the ball a little bit and can spark some plays for you, kind of like in that Texas game 2 weeks ago, where his escapability on that 4th and short and his ability to not only get the yardage but then run it in for a score, I mean, that directly led to them just, off to the races after that. So a big win for Oklahoma. The Caleb Williams thing has been massive for them. I'd love to talk about Baylor's win some more. I mean, for them to be at 6-1, to beat BYU pretty convincingly at home, I think, showed a lot about this team. You can no longer say, well, they haven't played anybody. Well, they're 3-0. They haven't played anybody. No, they played Iowa State. They played West Virginia. And I know West Virginia is not great this year, but just in terms of defenses they played and people waiting for every week, like, oh, well they haven't played. Now they play BYU as well. Now they've got 2 top 25 wins. Now they've faced some of the better defenses in the Big 12 already, and now they get a break. And I think they're going to be set up really well for when that break comes or when that break ends here in a week.
We're going to read some of your chat room comments and text line 254-339-1122, and then a couple other comments to get to as well.
The good defenses, or at least the high-ranked defenses, are done in the schedule. The ones who have problems, Texas, Oklahoma, and TCU, while those teams are all good, their defenses are the ones that are the weaker part of their team. Now, they all have, TCU is a little up and down, but Texas and Oklahoma have really good offenses, so it'll be interesting to see how that balances out for them down the stretch when they do play Baylor. But as far as the teams with the tough, get in the backfield and knock you in the mouth defenses, they're kind of past those right now.
Well, we're going to hear from Dave Aranda in a minute about one of the things of that game and that win against Brigham Young that I thought he went full Jedi. Craig?
I will say, though, Oklahoma is just now being an offensive team again. They've been a defensive team all year long, and now just in the last 2 weeks, really, they've become an offensive team once again. So
they look like who we always have seen them for many years, where they jump on you with big plays, explosive plays, and they can do that, it seemed like, consistently.
Yeah, and if their defense has, been able to, if their defense can remain at the sort of the bar that's been set now by Alex Grinch, and you pair those two together, there's a lot to like about what that team potentially looks like, and we saw a little bit of a flash of that on Saturday. So I think they're really well set up, and Caleb Williams has completely changed the dynamic there. So I do think they'll be a tough test for Baylor here in a few weeks. But no, I don't think that I think that Baylor's played Oklahoma State, Iowa State, West Virginia, back-to-back, and even BYU. I mean, I think they've shown at this point that offense is legitimate. It's not, a matter of, they played Texas State, and they played, this team and that. No, they played enough teams now to know that they're legit. So, that Baylor-Oklahoma game, that could have, a lot riding on it.
Yeah, a lot of things to go to still be ironed out. Baylor in Texas, when they do play in 2 weeks, will be an 11 o'clock start on ABC at McLean Stadium. From Daniel, what's more incredible, Baylor held Brigham Young to 67 yards rushing on 24 attempts. 56 came on one play. Yeah. So the other 11 came on 23 carries. Of course, there were sacks as well.
5 sacks.
5 sacks as well. So let's go to the chat room to kind of get some of that. Go ahead.
Regardless of the 5 sacks, I mean, that's an incredible stat. And their running defense was on point. Going into that game, you thought that Tyler Algier would be a main focal point of the Baylor defense because he was, BYU's arguably best player. And, he made little to no impact on Saturday. He had the one touchdown that was from the 1 yard line, but he didn't have, big explosive runs or, any long damaging runs really. I mean, they kept it in check. Now, the BYU receivers, they were able to find some holes.
Puka Nacua.
Yeah, but, at the same time, it was almost like they got those big chunk plays, but none of them broke free. They were 40 yards, 45 yards, but then they'd be in the red zone and Baylor would hold them to a field goal or, turn the ball over or whatever. So, you'll give those up if they're not finishing them off, but that was something where BYU was able to find some holes in that secondary or just the receivers made great plays. And that's what they had to do because that run game was doing nothing.
They had, other than the long run, which was a big play early in the third quarter, they had 4 long passes. And that's something that when you try to put everything together to stop the run, which you thought would be their bread and butter, even with Brigham Young's receivers, that's something you can't be dominant everywhere. There's only so many 85 Chicago Bears. So from the chat room, from Bob Williams opening up, it's War Eagle Monday. Scotty B, Baylor out-physicaled Brigham Young both sides of the ball. Also, from Scotty B, Baylor fans or Brigham Young fans who were at the game were great. The ones I interacted with were nice. Donnie Hand, Go Damn Pokes. Doug Hassel. Brigham Young 6-1. Bowl-bound Sick'em Bears. Chris, good afternoons. I feel bad for Ed Orgeron, but he is the first of many coaches who will be fired this year. It will be feeding frenzy for a few talented coaches. Also from, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to touch on a few of those different things, but go ahead and read them off, I guess.
Well, let's read them off, and then we'll go back over them again. From Jeff Grimm, who's back in the country, Roll Tide. Bob Williams, Florida Gators cost me money. From Salt of the Earth, the Tech fan, fire Matt Wells. Let's see here.
They won this week.
Yeah, but they beat Kansas.
From Chet Buxton, go Tigers. He's talking LSU.
I think we got a few things there.
Yeah. Chris Pitt is now the favorite to win the ACC. This week's game with Clemson will be a huge test for the Panthers. Okay, let's go over and kind of get to that part.
Which part?
Any of them. React to any of them.
I kind of lost track.
Yeah, me too.
We read so many. I'll say.
All right, let's start with this
for the feeding
one.
frenzy on the coaches.
Yeah.
When you have LSU and USC in the water, agents are going to use that even for people who are not even in the realm of discussion, who might just be hot names. So that's going to be good. That's a good point, that there's going to be some coaches that are going to make more money somewhere else just because LSU and USC are out there, available, and we really don't know what they want to do, and they probably have a similar candidate list. I think for LSU, what they can't do is what they did last time with Ed Orgeron, which kind of lucked out for them, keeping Ed and winning a national title, but they can't just go all in on a guy that was never coming to LSU and was only going to Texas and was using LSU to just make sure Texas paid him what he wanted in Tom Herman. They've got to have a deeper candidate list than Tom Herman or the guy who's sitting in the room right now.
I'm telling you right now, I'll say this, and Craig, you go back. Dave Aranda, I know there's a lot of this. Dave Aranda, LSU. We had Mike Scarborough on. Ross Dellinger's going to join us at 3:30. He's not leaving Baylor for LSU. I'm going to say that right now. I will put my no one's told me that. He hasn't told me that. He had no media session this week because it's an off week, but I don't think that's the one. His name will be brought up, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Aranda and LSU, and we all have seen the various coaching searches that have taken place here. I mean, there's even though Bryles didn't leave on his own accord, there was a time before where he almost did, where he was flirting pretty heavily with Texas. and that was looking like a near thing that could happen. So we've seen that. We've seen Rule leaving. 3 years of basically covering him leaving or not leaving. It felt like every offseason for 3 years it was a question of whether he would go, and you had to not only watch the college football openings, but watch the NFL openings like a hawk. But with Dave Aranda, I'm not sweating it at all, and I don't have any insider info either. But part of it is that I just think right now he's in a really good spot with what's going on in Waco, and the decisions that he's made as far as the program goes and the success they're seeing. But also, I don't know that LSU would necessarily want him. I think that they're looking for a bigger fish, at least for starters, and that might be somebody who in case of emergency break glass or something like that. But I might be totally wrong on this. Like I said, no insight. I just don't think
big name.
I don't think they're going after Dave Aranda.
Yeah.
So that makes me even less worried about it.
All right. I just get that feeling. I know that there's that. And that's Ross Dellinger will join us and discuss the out of Ed Orgeron, who will finish up the year. He's going to get like $16 million, $5 or $6 million this year. And every 6 months gets a check from anywhere between like $450,000 and $750,000 all the way through the end of 2025 or so. From Donnie Hand, as an Oklahoma State fan, I was one of those fans. He was one of those fans that said Oklahoma State would be exposed in Austin, and early on it didn't look great, but they just found a way to get back in the game like Oklahoma did, wore them down. Warren was incredible in the second half. Spencer Sanders was not the good one in the first half, but it was okay. They just found a way to keep going. Bob Williams, I've never said Aranda to LSU except as a question. I do believe he would be a great fit there, though. All right? Chet Buxton, think about the total buyout is $17 million for Coach Orgeron.
Yeah, going back to Oklahoma State, go damn Pokes indeed. I mean, that was a great win for them. And, Jaylen Warren went off and did what he does. He's a great running back for them. And, what an addition he was through the transfer portal. I did not see that coming. I mean, not the fact that they won, but the way that game was looking about halfway through, I did not see them digging out of a hole and coming storming back. But there's something about the Longhorns in second halves that they need to figure out, because that's become a bugaboo for them now. And you look at UT and all of the fun and fireworks that they had with, of course, the tail kicking from Arkansas, but then being able to rebound after that, and the big competitive game with Oklahoma. And if you go back to 2 weeks ago and to just when Texas had that lead over Oklahoma, and the feeling there was for that team then versus the feeling there is now, 2 straight losses later, and it's crazy, how it can kind of flip on you like that. And all of a sudden you go from, man, we're going to throw all over everybody, to like, now we have question marks. Like, is the quarterback still the right guy? Is Casey, like, now we're back to that now at 4-3. Like, there's actually discussion about, like, is there a chance we see Hudson Card now again? And so it's crazy how quickly the roller coaster can change directions. But that was a great win for Oklahoma State. They just keep getting it done. Like, it's not the most impressive, it's not the sexiest, but they get it done. And that's all you got to do is just keep winning games, and they are. So credit to Gundy and the Cowboys.
Your question about the quarterback brings me back to my early theory that maybe the 2022 quarterback's not on the roster right now for Steve Sarkisian, because if they keep having these ups and downs, I mean, he wrestled with which one to put in, and Casey Thompson played well for a stretch, but now they faded in 2 straight fourth quarters. And
and Bijan Robinson had another nice game for them. 21 carries, $135, caught I think a touchdown and ran for one as well. But they just seemed like they forget that the game's 4 quarters, and so that's something they have to work on. UT San Antonio, I mentioned, first time they've ever been ranked. Cincinnati, they just crushed UCF and beat them and made them like it. Number 2 in the country. Georgia put everything back together, of course, where Kentucky was as far as reality. Doesn't mean Kentucky's not a good football team, but
no, I mean,
they beat them up pretty good.
They didn't get embarrassed,
no,
though.
Not at
it
all.
wasn't like they got blown out and just, completely, had their face, their masks ripped off and, oh, wait a second, you're not a real good team. You're a phony. No, like they got beat by the best team in the country. So what? And they, played respectably. So hats off to them.
Armstrong, do you have the image? Let me go to the first one I want to ask you about. Then I want to hear from Dave Aranda. It's on the fact that Baylor had no penalties in that game with Brigham Young, which is a team that's been penalized Baylor quite a bit. Do you have the image of UT's second half possessions? I sent that to you. Here you are. This is UT in the second half. Now put this in perspective. Look at the column, which is punt, kickoff, punt. received. Think about this. They had nothing going. The one on the red, punt, and then I can't even see the red. They had nothing. Minus 3 yards, 7, 4, minus 6, 7, and 5. I mean, they didn't take any time off the clock, and so then the defense gets worn out. It was very eerily similar almost to Oklahoma in the second half. And that game was still up for grabs, and Texas seemed like they could still survive. The pick 6 from Casey Thompson eventually ate their lunch. That kind of flipped everything because at the time I think it was 17-3.
And they were going to score again.
Yeah, they were inside the red zone.
They were about to be up huge, and just a great read as a play that he had seen before, and made the right read and jump on it, and it was a perfect play. That was a huge spark that Oklahoma State needed, and that kind of kick-started everything ultimately rolling back in their favor. So without that pick 6, and who knows where that final result ends up, but certainly with that's a big reason why Oklahoma State was able to win that game.
After the game, Baylor beats Brigham Young, and they do it pretty handily and decisively, and they did control both offensive and defensive lines. This is one comment from Dave Aranda. When the question was brought up about how Baylor, which has had some issues with penalty, and it might have hurt them even more so at Oklahoma State, could have cost them a game against Iowa State as well, about the fact there were no penalties. Listen to how he breaks down a question about no penalties.
I think it's a good step. I think we talk about it quite a bit. I think, looking at sport as a way to master yourself, I think is the approach. And I think for any type of self-mastery, there has to be a craft that you work. I think the craft, especially the harder the craft, brings out that mastery of self if you look at it like that. And I think football's hard, especially when you don't look at it that way, It's more of like an outlet. It's more of like, I'm pissed off at life. I'm going to take it all out when I'm playing football. And so to kind of flip that around is difficult. And so I appreciate their understanding and their listening and all of it, because it means a lot to me.
Mastering a craft, saying things like that, and then also he opened up the press conference with his first comment was about, he mentioned intrinsically, like right off the top. And so I've told Mac Rhodes I'm no longer capable of going to any of his media sessions. Those are big.
Everybody calls him Yoda. That's not so much Yoda. That's more Kung Fu from the 70s kind of stuff.
Here's from Chet. He goes, in fact, Dave Aranda channeling his inner Bruce Lee. I love it. Craig?
Yeah, he's very philosophical. He's a philosophy major, but we don't need to pretend like we're all just very dumb. We can understand what he's saying. No. You know what intrinsically means, and he phrases it a little bit of a different way. He's not the first coach, I don't think, to really speak like that either. There's been others, but it is unique in today's football, especially when you compare him to, an Ed O or to any countless other number of names out there. He is unique. He's a deep thinker. I appreciate that about him. I give Dave Aranda very high marks for just about everything that he's done. You look at the transfer portal additions, which one of them's not a factor right now? Jacob Gall and Grant Miller on the offensive line, Drew Estrada at receiver, Siaki Ika on the defensive line. They've all been hits. They've all been guys that have made plays for them at one point or another. You look at the changes on the coaching staff. Which one hasn't been a success? The offense is night and day from what it was a year ago, and the best running game they've had in at least 3 years. Because even with the rule teams, they could run the ball at times, but they never really dictated the run. They could find some ways to run at times, and they'd get in a little bit of but they never just, in my opinion, lined up and shoved it down your throat and said, you're not going to stop it. It doesn't matter. We're going to keep running, and you're not going to stop it. But that's what this team does. And just the changes with Grimes and Stuckey with the receivers. You've seen growth with those guys. Across the board, his decisions this offseason, check. I can't think of one that hasn't worked out well for them. So I give him a lot of credit for taking a look at that first year and us all realizing that wasn't a real year from the standpoint of COVID and all that was interrupting. But they had that first season. They took their lumps. He didn't panic. He made tough but quick decisions on the staff because he knew they had to do that, made great hires, hit the transfer portal to find the holes in the roster, And I give him a lot of credit for what he's doing as head coach. You know, he's still relatively inexperienced compared to a lot of guys out there, but I think he's showing a lot of good signs for what's to come and how he will continue to grow as a head coach.
Doug Housel, mastery of self is a nod to Sun Tzu.
There you go.
Military strategist. Dude is a sage. Also from Orlando, 7448. Aranda is as cool as a fan.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Craig, all of the things that have worked out. I think one thing we haven't talked about on the coaching side that they changed a lot is the strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks, especially the offensive line. I think the lasting effects of COVID on those guys, because they were the ones who were kind of the patient zeros of the Baylor team last year, and pretty much all of the guys in the offensive line got it to one degree or another. And it's not an easy thing to come back from, especially when you're a larger person, and to come back and play football and not be 100%. And then this change of strength and conditioning clearly showed itself in that I think the intersection of Mateos and that hire, I thought they would be better because I thought that if that wasn't rock bottom, you didn't want to see rock bottom with how bad their offensive line played. I knew they would be better just in they'll look like they've played together kind of a thing. I didn't think they would look that much better in that you don't touch the quarterback for series and series at a time. The running backs don't lose 5 yards as soon as the ball hits their belly.
They're not being hit as soon as they can, even if it's and here's one of the notes. This is from Dylan Doyle, who caught a touchdown pass, ran for a touchdown, was very involved as well on defense. This is Dylan Doyle. We have this, Armstrong. His comment about he's a transfer from Iowa. We know his story. His father, the strength and conditioning coach, was let go by Iowa. Dylan Doyle was looking around, and this guy is making plays, and he is as good as, at times last year he was good. He was okay. He's really, along with Terrell Bernard, among others, making a lot of great plays in what moving or transferring to Baylor has meant to him.
Yeah. I love the team. It's such a cool atmosphere. We have a ton of guys that love football. I sit with JT Woods, Christian Morgan, Terrell Bernard, Jalen Petrie at breakfast and dinner when we travel, and they're always talking football. They're like, hey, if you get this concept, what are you playing? And I don't think that happens at a lot of other schools. Those guys come in every day, and they're just so passionate about the game, and hopefully we show that with how we play on Saturdays, the passion that we have for each other and the game, just with how we chase the ball carrier, the fundamentals that we play with, and we just want that to show on the field, our passion for each other and our passion for the game.
All right, that's Dylan Doyle, and then earlier Dave Aranda as well.
Dylan Doyle, you got to give that young man a lot of credit with what happened with his father. That was a tough position for him to be in. It had nothing to do with him, but being in that Iowa program and just everything that was looming there, understandable that he'd probably want to take a look around and could have probably gone a lot of different places. He was known to be a good football player, but, Baylor makes the move and is able to bring him in, and he's been nothing but a hugely positive influence from where we sit on the team. And, to do what he did on Saturday, for those that don't know him, he's a starting linebacker. He's one of their starting linebackers. He's a pretty good linebacker, and he got a sack, and that'd be good enough for a linebacker along with some tackles. But he's also, over the last few weeks, been playing some fullback because they needed somebody like him to be able to, make some holes and make some blocks. And then on Saturday, he ran and caught a touchdown in addition to having a sack. So he did a little bit of everything. His celebration or just his excitement after that first score was awesome to see, just so genuine and real. And, he's a teammate's teammate, that's for sure. He was a great addition to this program.
All right, when we come back, Ross Dellinger on LSU and Ed Orgeron, despite the win against Florida, which was impressive, explosive. Think about all the running backs that LSU's had, and it was single-game rushing record was broken. Did that at any time? I even text Mike Scarborough after the game. Did that save Coach O, which he told us Friday, not even a win against Florida could save him. That ship had sailed, and the decision, he will finish out the year, and he gets the money. And Ross Dellinger will talk about that, plus the landscape of college football, much more to come. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio. Discover Woodway. They had that concert last Thursday, Oktoberfest, and it was very successful, and yet they have many more still to come. They have much more to come. In fact, they are also continuing their sports clinics at the park when it comes to sand volleyball, and also they continue to have the flag football as well. But some of what they still have are more concerts to come. In fact, there's a couple of things to let you know about. Jake Hoot, Sundance Head, he'll be a part of a concert coming up. Cops and Kids Halloween Drive-Thru on October 30th, which of course is Halloween night, and that's for free if you want to be a part of that. A Veterans Breakfast coming up November the 12th from 9 until 11 o'clock at the Veterans Breakfast. It's the pavilion at the Arboretum. You can get all of this information of how vibrant it is in Woodway, Texas, if you want to go to discoverwoodway.com. And with Baylor, a game in 2 weeks against Texas. Basketball about to start in November and much more. They have 7 hotels in Woodway for you to stay for the weekend. And even if it's not to watch a Baylor football game against Texas on October 30th, or not for any basketball games, you can still come into town to see the Silos, Magnolia, Balcones, and much more. It's discoverwoodway.com.
The beautiful, rugged, elegant third-row seat Jeep Grand Cherokee L is in stock at Allen Samuels. This prestigious Jeep heritage is obvious in the Grand Cherokee L. First responders, we're offering an extra $500 cash for you. The 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo or Limited has total values of $3,500 or 0% for 72 months going on now. Jeep Adventure Days at Allen Samuels, located at 201 West Loop 340 in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey guys, sports betting season is in full force with football season entrenched and the NBA and NHL underway and the Major League Baseball playoffs. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity like BetUS.com. BetUS has been pioneers in the sportsbook industry for almost 3 decades, thriving and paying their loyal customer base. That's BetUS.com, and they have loads of bonuses like ours at BetUS.com. 125% bonus on promo code SICK'EM125 or a 200% bonus if you use crypto on promo code SICK'EM200. BetUS, known as America's favorite sportsbook. NFL, college football, MLB, UFC, PGA golf, they've got it all at BetUS.com. So go to BetUS.com today and use promo code SICK'EM125 or SICK'EM200. That's BetUS.com, promo code SICK'EM125 or SICK'EM200.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfect pizza. Bob Mock has owned Marco's Pizza franchises since 2013 and has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in the Waco area, in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Order at marcos.com to make any moment better. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country-style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite cut of steaks from select, choice, or prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strips, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Let
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Call us on the BetUS hotline, 254-339-1122.
All right, here we go. And Jimbo Fisher was asked about LSU, and he says, plans on filling this contract. We're in the process of building something great. I plan on being here and fulfilling his contract. We mentioned Dave Aranda, of course, former defensive coordinator at LSU. I truly believe that that's not, even there might be interest or not, that I do believe that he is here at Baylor, and I don't think that's going to be a part of the equation as well. He had no media session today because it's an off week. We're now joined by Ross Dellinger, who's been a part of this Ed Orgeron LSU story for quite some time. And Ross, excuse me, let's start with this. I've read different articles. I've read a lot of what you've reported as well. How did this become such a nightmare in such a short amount of time?
Well, I think it, first off, and I think Scott Woodward said it Sunday night in the press conference, it's about wins and losses, and it always is, especially at LSU. And if LSU were 5-2 right now, or certainly 7-0 or something, we probably wouldn't be sitting here. But you start to try to explain why, since the championship, not 2019 championship, LSU's going 9-8, and why they're having the on the field struggles. And it starts off the field, and a lot of times it always does, especially with a program with so much talent. Then you look at why are they struggling on the field, and I think a lot of it, kind of starts first off with the coordinator hires. When Ed Orgeron got the job at LSU, he made a pitch to Joe Oliva, then the athletic director, that he was going to hire strong coordinators and kind of stay out of the room. One of those coordinators they had on staff already, Dave Aranda, and certainly helped him out a lot there at LSU. And so I think since Aranda has left, and since Joe Burrow, obviously at quarterback, and Joe Brady at pass game coordinator has left, it's just been hard. And those three were the anchors of the 2019 title team. It's just been hard to replace them. And Bo Pelini hired defensive coordinator was a disaster last season. The defensive coordinator search this year ended on a guy that's never been a coordinator. And Ed Orgeron hired basically the assistant to Joe Brady at Carolina, who had never been a coordinator, to come in and be offensive coordinator. So I think one of the big issues it starts with the coordinator hires, but there are a lot of other things. There's a lot of behavior inside the building at LSU, a little eccentric behavior from Ed Orgeron, and there's behavior outside the building, some public embarrassments that I know have frustrated administration. And then you go back to last summer, Dave, where you had the social injustice, and at LSU it went a little different. It went poorly. It was a little bit mishandled, and I think that caused some commotion on the team and some anger at the head coach. And there's all those things, all those off the field kind of things, kind of led to, I think, the on the field struggles.
Ross, what do they look for in a replacement? The last one, when Ed Orgeron wound up being the coach, it kind of felt like they put a lot of eggs in the Tom Herman basket that wasn't, and their plan B was the guy in the room at Orgeron. Did they have more depth to the search this time, and do they want to make a bigger splash?
Well, I mean, Scott Woodward has an MO. His previous hires, you guys very much know one. And Kim Mulkey, he goes out and he goes to the top. He hired Mulkey, of course. He hired Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. He hired Chris Peterson at Washington. Buzz Williams at Texas A&M in basketball. He's hired the big names. He's gone out, spent a lot of money, and hired the big names, and that's kind of his MO. And I would imagine that he will start there. He'll start at the very top of college football. The LSU job is probably a top 5 job, right? I mean, it's got the resources, fertile recruiting ground, incredible facilities. It's really got all the recipe to win. The last 3 coaches have won national titles, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. The checkbook's out, and I'm sure he'll go to the top. And those names I know have circulated around. Guys like James Franklin, guys like Mel Tucker, guys like maybe Lane Kiffin. And, I don't think that LSU flirts again with Jimbo Fisher. I think that is probably not something that happens. It happened in 15 and 2016 as well, but I don't necessarily think that happens this year. And then there's some big names that might be untouchable at LSU. The program's going through some Title IX stuff, and guys like Hugh Freeze and Urban Meyer are guys that may have been considered before, but I'm not sure that they'd be at the top of the list.
Ross, you outlined really well in your article the swift fall of Ed Orgeron at LSU, just all the different issues that were going on off the field, and certainly some of the players not jiving really well with some of Ed Orgeron's comments at times. This thing was flying so high 2 years ago. What sense do you get from the players now, though? Obviously, a lot of guys were starting to get injured or not playing any longer this season. What's kind of the feel within the locker room as best you can tell?
Well, last summer was really impactful, I think, for the program. You had COVID, of course, and then you had the social injustice stuff that came about last summer, and on every campus you had marches. Players marched. Players basically, canceled practice themselves and then marched, and it wasn't well received by Ed Orgeron, and handled a little poorly, I think, and that certainly angered, I think, some players and some player parents, and it just created an environment that we've seen this year. People in the building kind of describe it as a hellish, kind of volatile environment. And Orgeron has had some incidents that harken back to maybe his days at Ole Miss, when he won 10 games in 3 years and was fired. So it's been a struggle, and it goes back to, again, it's almost like something changed a little bit after the championship in 2019. And they lost all those pieces, but it was more than that, though. It was the handling of some things, like those things in the summer, and you had a lot of players end up leaving, over that or during that time. I think LSU lost around 12 players during that stretch after losing 9 players early to the NFL draft after that 19 team. So the whole roster was just remade, and they struggled last year. Again, Pelini hire didn't work out, and they just couldn't get it going this year. And I think the plug was pulled so quickly that, LSU sitting at 4-3, right? Just knocked off Florida, but the plug was pulled so quickly because I think Scott Woodward saw where this was going and saw off the field stuff too, where this was heading, and it's probably not a good place.
Yeah, I was going to say, even after beating Florida, this is how bad it is, right? That even that win couldn't save his job.
Yeah, I think that LSU going up to Kentucky and getting manhandled, just physically dominated in Lexington, that was it. That was kind of the nail in the coffin. And in fact, on Sunday after that game, I believe Scott Woodward informed Ed Orgeron he would not be the coach in 2022. So they knew that, a week before the Florida game, Ed Orgeron knew that, and then they started working on settlement talks, which I think were finalized, or mostly finalized by the end of the week, a day or two before the Florida win. So it was kind of an unusual circumstance during that week, but that's kind of how it played out.
Ross, what are your thoughts about the situation at Tennessee on Saturday night When is it to a point where they just don't complete the game? And I'm not going to overreact. I know a lot of people, it's just awful, and it was. They're fined $250,000 today by the SEC as unacceptable, and it was. What would have happened there, you think, for them just not to finish the game?
Yeah, I don't know. It would be hard to see them suspending the game and just leaving it at that, even though it might have been the safest possibility, right? We saw Lane Kiffin walking off the field and having things thrown at him, including a water bottle that he caught. But you never know what somebody's got on them to throw, and it is unfortunate. It's really unfortunate to kind of see all that happening because it was an incredible electric environment in Tennessee. I talked to some people who were there, and they said, it's the best environment in Tennessee in 5+ years, and it's incredible to watch, and you could hear the noise and stuff, and it's really, really cool. But obviously, it ended really poorly and classless. And look, officials have a incredibly difficult job. I think being a football official is one of the most difficult things in our culture, in our community. It's so hard, and replay sometimes doesn't really help you in the angle of that call, the angle of the camera. I mean, on that last call, it didn't help, and I don't think you could have changed the call on the field and to react like the Tennessee students did. It's really unfortunate. $250,000 fine from Greg Sankey. I don't think that's going to do much, really. But it's not like they could, ban all students from the next home game, which is, I think, some suggested. That would not go over well at all, and it would punish potentially students who didn't have anything to do with it. So it's a tough situation.
Yeah, the golf ball he kept, I'm sure, as a souvenir that he was showing the ref. I thought that was wild that somebody smuggling a golf ball.
Did you see the meme of him and George from Seinfeld with the golf ball? That was fantastic. Yeah. I love that.
But yeah, Ross, it's weird. In Tennessee, you mentioned that the best atmosphere in 5 years. They need an atmosphere like that. They need to be back to beat Tennessee again. Just because they lost the game doesn't mean you're not on the path, but that might have set them back a little bit in what Josh Heupel's trying to do.
Right. Yeah. They seem to be playing really well. They played Ole Miss very well. Ole Miss was a better team. I think that was pretty obvious from early on, but they played them really well, and that crowd had something to do with it. So they had a lot of the recipes there for an upset. They really did. But then you have that sour ending that, like you said, could have reverberations, could have impacts down the line, and it's really unfortunate.
Hey, Ross, I know that LSU's probably swinging, for bigger trees, but there is the David Aranda connection to LSU. I was just curious your thoughts. How much do you think LSU even looks under that rock? But also, and maybe the majority of my question really is, as somebody in your shoes who covered him, so closely, your thoughts on what you've seen him do now with a full offseason under his belt and what he's doing in his second year in Waco?
Well, I think I've been on the show before and said this exact thing. But Dave is he's probably the most unique college football coach I've ever been around. When you hear him talk, when you interview him, even if you see him interact on a practice field, he doesn't necessarily come across as your normal prototypical coach. He reminds you, especially in interviews, of like math professor Dave Aranda. It just that's how he is. But he is incredibly organized, an unbelievably obviously hard worker, a master at defense, and that staff, which I know about half of it, a lot of them were at LSU at some point. They seem to have gelled really well. They seem to have been working together in a way that has the Bears playing some really good football. And I know they had a chance to beat Oklahoma State, and we're seeing how good Oklahoma State maybe is too, having beat Texas at Texas this past weekend. So, it'll be interesting to watch. I don't, Scott Woodward, he turns over all the stones. I'm sure he'll turn over that one there. I mean, because Dave is a beloved figure in Baton Rouge. I mean, he is a guy that a lot of people credit, as I mentioned earlier, for a big piece of winning the 2019 title and a big piece of those first couple years of Ed Orgeron's tenure, 2017, 2018, and maybe even 2016 when Ed got the interim job. Dave's defense that year in 2016, I mean, saved the day on multiple occasions. They were incredible. So he is a beloved figure in Baton Rouge, that is for sure. And you got to think if they keep it really rolling, if they don't give a serious look there, yeah.
One thing about him is when we look at Orgeron, maybe getting somewhat full of himself, and most people go through that when they've had success. I remember a meeting with a booster club or something when he did hire Pelini, and he made the comment, we're going to be so much better than we were last year on defense. That was actually a quote in one of the papers. And I was like, you know what? I wonder if that may ever come back to bite him. And I think maybe it did more than just bite him.
Yeah, I remember exactly what you're talking about. It was for sure head scratching. I think a lot of people at Baylor and a lot of people at LSU were wondering why the heck he would say something like that. And it probably gives you a little window into the issues happening inside of the LSU football facility in the last year and a half. So that kind of is a good example of the actions that have led the Tigers to this point.
Ross, thank you very much, as always. I know you're busy. Appreciate your time. Always great to talk to you.
All right, Dave. Thank you.
Ross Dellinger, SI.com. Chris asked a question about this, and he kind of brought this up a little bit, but why would you do this? And it says quite a bit where they were. Why would you do this after such an emotional win against Florida? That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
Imagine that they do that after they beat Florida. That's how bad it must be.
And really, they did it before. They announced it after, but you're Ross. They really told him. It did not matter. And maybe that's going to help Edo coach for the rest of the year, knowing that, look, you're not coaching for your job anymore. Just go out there and let it rip.
I think even if the players aren't exactly on board with Edo, Paul, it'll still be more of like a rally the troops kind of a thing. And I think, too, that it at least gives the players or anybody who's not feeling real great about the direction of things right now, gives them hope. It gives them something to hold on to that, like, hey, don't worry, we'll finish out this season and then the changes are going to be made. You don't have to worry about there's no end in sight to the Edo tenure if you're somebody who's not happy within that tenure. So yeah, it gives the fans and it gives the players the knowledge that, like, hey, we are going to go out and we're going to get somebody new. We're going to bring them in here and they're going to tear it up and this and that. So you don't run the risk of just plodding through the rest of the season and picking up some more losses, and then it just gets even worse and worse and worse. And so, yeah, I think it was kind of a move they had to make for what y'all said. It was that bad at that point. So hard to imagine. Yeah, I mean, it is hard. It's head scratching in a way, but that shows you that it had to be done.
Give him a chance to finish out kind of a goodbye, farewell type season. Yeah. They may still win another 2 or 3, may lose another 2 or 3, might run the table, but let's get this out there now. Let's move on to the next, whoever that might be.
It is weird, though, man, because there were so many different, like Ross's piece and just all the other different stuff that was going around just about, everything that's happened since, the pandemic hit and then Black Lives Matter and all the different, things that have taken place over the last year and a half or so that coaches have had to deal with. And he seems to have, whiffed on quite a few of those things, just the way it was described. So, not the first to have a fall from grace, certainly. And I know there will be a segment of LSU fans that he'll always be beloved and whatnot, but I think it's probably the right move for the Tigers in the long run.
From Sooner JJ to wrap up the segment, we come back with a short segment to wrap up the hour. Walter Abercrombie, former Baylor and NFL running back on the Baylor running game. From Sooner JJ, Edo needs to replace Corso on game day. I can't understand either one of them. All right, when we come.
By the way, Dave Aranda now 500 as a head coach. Did y'all realize that?
Yeah,
he was 2-7, and now he's 6-1. He's 8-8.
And Colt Barber wrote something today. He wrote this actually back even before the year about how this the standard of what was expected this year, how that needle has moved. We'll come back and kind of discuss that as well. More of your text messages. I got a neat one from Eric, who was at a wedding out of state, I think it was, or out of state in New Mexico, and how he watched Baylor and Brigham Young. Here we go. Sikkim 365 Radio. IdealMRI.com. Their logo is right behind us. One of the title sponsors of this show from day one, even before day one, when Dr. Rob Maxey contacted me. We want to be a part of your show. And since the growth on April the 6th of 2020, they've been there every single day, like so many others have been with what we do, and even through the growth of YouTube and 365 Sports. And how about their growth? I remember when I was actually doing endorsements for them at a radio station, and what they have, went there to see them. And the staff, they have a state-of-the-art technology MRI machine. And what's great about it is you can go online, idealmri.com, or call them and get an appointment, or get your doctor to set up an appointment. And it's not like when you go there. First of all, it's simple to get an appointment. That doesn't mean they're not packed and crowded. They are. And they're open sometimes into the early evening, so you can go after work. Like I've done an MRI there as late as 8 o'clock at night. So they'll make it work for you. But here's a couple of things. You're not going to have to wait forever for like minutes upon minutes or hours upon hours waiting for your name to be called in a large waiting room. It's very simple. It's very efficient. The staff is amazing. The techs, the specialists who greet you at the front door, and the doctors are also, whether it's whoever reads what you have to get looked at. And if your doctor wants to get a better look at your shoulder, your knee, whatever it is with an MRI, you tell them, I want you to get me in touch with Ideal MRI. $497 or less every single time. The average MRI is $1,100 at idealmri.com.
Payments for qualified buyers at 2.9% with $4,000 down, cash or trade. See dealer for details.
Hit the road and save on a reliable pre-owned vehicle from Richard Carr. Savings like a 7-passenger 2016 GMC Acadia for $211 a month, or a 2014 Cadillac CTS sedan for $288 a month. Plus, we pay top dollar for your trade. All pre-owned cars and trucks go through a 172-point inspection. With multiple lenders, we say yes when others say no. Hit the road and save at Richard Carr.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness continues to add more weapons to your getting or staying in shape arsenal with 8 brand new treadmills ready for you to run or walk a mile or 2 or 10. And with the explosion of interest in pickleball with instructors Joe Rosa and Jody Thurman with more courts available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with large flat screens stretched across the weight room with Wi-Fi available, their own app to enjoy news, business, weather, or sports. Everywhere you look, there's energy, passion, and commitment. New touchless water fountains outside of each locker room, and all the locker rooms with showers, sauna, and whirlpool. Upgraded PA system throughout the world-class tennis courts with a youth academy led by pro Britt Coleman. Fitness and tennis merchandise available and a tanning bed. I promise you'll look and feel better. You just need to walk through the front door. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with personal trainers Christy London and Randall Corley. 40-plus group exercise classes, including twice-a-week boot camp. It's time to react today, not tomorrow. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Major League Baseball postseason. Craig does a lot of those updates on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Paul, Astros and Red Sox tonight.
Yep.
Dodgers and Braves. The Braves are up 2-0. Both dramatic wins. Both are dramatic.
I got to say, it's fun seeing that Atlanta crowd, having a lot of fun.
Yeah,
just the Braves in the postseason, that was my childhood, was the Braves. I mean, that was the team on TBS that used to annoy the hell out of me because they'd take wrestling off the air.
And they started 6:30. They started 6:35, which I never understood.
Yeah.
But that's what they did with the Turner networks. Like 6:05 on TBS was Saturday Night Wrestling. It was 6:05, not 6, and so they've always kind of done that. But yeah, I think everybody, especially down south, grew up watching the Braves, whether you intended to or not. You had really no choice, and so it made for a lot of Braves fans in the south. And to see that place and that team rocking in the postseason just feels right.
They did in baseball what the Cowboys did in football by invading to the West. Tex Schramm, Gil Brandt, all of them, they were smart. That's why you have so many Cowboys fans around the country, but out west in Arizona, San Diego.
Everybody I grew up with that is now a Marlins or a Rays fan was either a Yankees or a Braves fan at some point because the
Cardinals too.
Probably Cardinals because of who trained down there. I'll tell you this: all of us who are Red Sox fans are still Red Sox fans because that's something you just can't shake off. But the Rays and the Marlins had to fight more with the Braves than anyone.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Braves were the ones we got to see on TV every night.
And the Cubs and Braves are the only games you could watch, and they were always a lot of times in the afternoon. That made it easier too.
Going to visit my Uncle Mike in Tampa before the Rays became a thing. He was a Braves fan because they were, proximity-wise the closest. And even when the Rays and Marlins came, I mean, he had no interest in a team from Miami. Like, there's lines drawn in Florida. Like, it's, you don't root for the Miami team just because you live in Florida. But even with a team right there in Tampa in his backyard, he's like, no, I'm a Braves fan. So he still roots for him. But
you can ask the people in the rest of the state when the city tried to get them to pay for their stadium.
Right, yeah.
Here's a tweet I put out yesterday afternoon when the Ed Orgeron story popped, and then people started mentioning names. And I think this, I won't pin this because I'm not someone that does that. It's pretty impressive if you think about Baylor football. Not known as a blue blood, yet Taft, Briles, Rule were courted by either blue bloods and or the NFL. Dave Aranda's name will be tossed around, maybe even LSU, as Ross Dellinger even mentioned. But I think he is the modern-day version of the perfect fit like Grant Taft. I mean that sincerely.
I think an even better comparison might be Scott Drew.
Maybe Scott Drew, but football because of Taft.
Yeah, but because Scott Drew, I'm sure people have called over Scott Drew over the years, especially how basketball hiring used to be. And if you got a team that, hadn't been in the postseason to the round of 32 for the first time in 15 years, then you could jump to any job that was open. That's just how you used to hire in college basketball. And he never never really was interested in that.
No.
He was interested
And
in
look where
making
he is
his
now.
program, and that's a good example for Dave Aranda.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I don't want to talk about Aranda and another job too much because I don't think it's really worth even spending too much time on until there's a reason to spend too much time on. I understand though. I'm not why we need to acknowledge it, but I think you're right. If he's content in Waco and likes being here, the world's his oyster as far as building this football program up, and I think they could do some special things. And I think the thing that's interrupted Baylor are those coaching changes. Let's take the off-the-field stuff and the whole, scandal, wherever you want to place the blame with that, because it doesn't all go directly on Art Briles. You can say whatever you want to, but it does not absolutely go all on him. But, we can all acknowledge what this football team would be like if he had been coaching the last few years.
They would have played in college football playoff championship.
Oh, my God,
games.
yeah. They absolutely
not just
would.
saying it would have been dialed up a lot, but they would have been a part 2 or 3 of them.
Absolutely would have been in the playoff at some point in the last few years if he was still the coach. So, that gets interrupted. And then you had the Grove interim year, and then Rule comes in, rocky start. But, what if Rule was still the coach? They probably, are flirting with winning 10 games more often than not. But, Aranda, I think the same thing's in store for him. So, we'll see how it goes. I'm not sweating anything as far as coaching vacancies and any of that right now. There's no reason to until given a reason to. But, safe to say I'm hesitant to, get too gushy with head coaches, especially in college athletics. But clear to say we like what we've seen.
Mike George texts Dave Aranda is in his element at Baylor. I agree. All right, when we come back, Walter Abercrombie was a hell of a running back at Baylor, played in the NFL with the Steelers. He's now a part of Baylor's Letterman's club. He's the one that runs it. His thoughts about this Baylor running game and what he has seen this year and what they're doing, and even his thoughts about Abram Smith next on Sikkim 365 Radio. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, maybe used to be, and need to be now. Here's what he can do. 1, contact them, PettyClinicLowT.com. Top left-hand corner, there's an email and a phone number. Call him, tell him that David Smoak sent you. He will then get an appointment for you to go get your blood work. He'll get the lab results, look at them, and find out if your testosterone levels are too low. And if they are, he can put you in a program to help you become the high-performance man that you want and need to be. And as you get older, maybe you used to be. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It could be your sleep habits. It could be your energy. It could be your sex drive. It could be all of the above. At PettyClinicLowT.com, they can take care of it, but you have to contact them if you feel that way. At PettyClinicLowT.com.
At long last, it's time for some college football. Bird Collision Ford proudly supports the Baylor Bears as they take the field this season. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Collision Ford. We have some great vehicles available this season as well, so come check out our winning lineup of new Fords. Let's cheer the Bears on to victory and celebrate by buying a new or pre-owned car, truck, or SUV. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Buying made simple at BK Ford. Sikkim Bears.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
masters of barbecue, kings of crazy good food, and the perfect sanctuary for sports, beer, and barbecue is Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco and also on Highway 84 in McGregor. A menu filled with choices like a great offensive playbook, including 3 meat combos with sides, burgers and sandwiches, wings, loaded giant spuds, and salads. Crazy wings, chicken poppers, big boy fries, and smoking quesadillas, just some of their amazing appetizers. There's Coach Big Ol' Draft Beer, or order Zach's Spicy Bloody Mary or Coach's Margaritas and Mimosas while watching your favorite team play. Great pecan smoked barbecue, fun atmosphere with attention to detail, including a catering menu, and we'll quote your price to fit your budget. Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco, and walking distance to the great places to shop and enjoy, and also the original location on Highway 84 in McGregor. Great food, great price, great fun. Eat where the locals eat.
The thing about having a naked truck is that you get exposed for the equipment you don't have. Take, for example, your rear end. If you don't have anything back there, you're exposed about what you don't have, and that's a life. However, if you cover that rear end with a hitch, you're telling the world, hey, I got a little junk in my bed, and I'm ready to pull something. A camper, RV, boat, trailer, jet skis, heck, even a bike rack. A hitch says, I have a life beyond driving my truck to and from work. And Pickup Outfitters is the place to get a hitch for your truck, SUV, van, even some cars. We sell and install just about any kind of hitch you need. Receiver hitches from light to heavyweight to pull just about anything. And gooseneck hitches and fifth wheels when you're ready to pull the heavy stuff. And don't forget trailer and brake controller wiring. It's so important to have wiring professionally and correctly installed by the pros at Pickup Outfitters. So it's time to cover that gaping hole in the rear end of your truck with a hitch. Installed by Pickup Outfitters. Check us out online at createacommotion.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco, is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
High formation. They give it to the fullback. You called it. Touchdown Bears.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
2nd and 1. He's on the ground. Smith, touchdown! The Bears strike again.
This segment on Baylor Athletics on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Learn more at richardcarr.com.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
You know, I was sitting there watching Baylor run the football the way they did, not just recently, but then Brigham Young happened, and Abram Smith and Ebner and all the others. They just pounded a really good football team and made them like it. And I was thinking, okay, who can we have? And we have analysts that come on and all that, but Walter Abercrombie was pretty damn good as a running back at Baylor with Grant Tapp as his head coach, and thought he would be perfect to kind of talk about the wide zone and what they're doing. And Walter Abercrombie joins me, of course, he runs the Baylor Letter Winners Association on Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you just been almost blown away in the night and day from a year ago to this year?
Yeah, it has been. It's been a lot of fun to watch, too. Not only have I been blown away, it's sort of an enjoyment to be blown away, to watch not only the running backs, but the blocking. This, like Saturday, I thought it was a total domination of the BYU defensive line. Our offensive line exercised their will. You know, and those two little running backs that you're referring to, guys, I'm starting to feel like there's probably not a better pair in the nation than Abram Smith and Tristan Ebner.
Walter,
Abram Smith in particular, this is a guy who was playing linebacker at a pretty high level and was a running back by trade when he came into school, but how impressive is it that he was able to step in and be a running back again, and not only a running back, but an elite one?
Well, he's an athlete, and most of the time when you see, it's really not uncommon to see linebackers switch over to running backs or running backs turn to tight ends, and we had one of the great ones with Greg Hawthorne, who was a running back here at Baylor, and then in the NFL he turned to be a tight end, and we saw the same thing with Keith Byers, and so who was from Ohio State. I played with him at the Eagles, but it happens, and for him to do it so quickly and have the success that he's had, I think speaks volumes of the kind of athlete he is. He's a tough guy. I mean, I saw him deliver a blow to get in the end zone Saturday that it would have knocked a lot of running backs over backwards. But he delivered a blow, and that's what I like about Abram, is he takes the battle to the defensive players rather than the defensive players taking the battle to him.
Walter, what stands out to you most about this offensive line? I mean, I think the scheme, obviously, that they put in with Jeff Grimes and Eric Mateos has paid dividends and worked really well. But, I mean, these are most of the same players from last year. These are most of the same guys. And they've obviously had to change different things here and there. But just the development, the hire of Eric Mateos and Jeff Grimes, your thoughts on the big uglies, so to speak, up front and what they're doing right now.
Well, I just love the way the offensive line is playing. Obviously, there's been a tremendous improvement in whatever they're doing. But someone told me once that if you're a great teacher and you can teach things in a way that players or people can understand it, you could be a great coach. So I got a feeling that we have on our staff right now some great teachers who are helping the offensive line understand what they need to do, and then they're preparing themselves physically to do it. Also, the way our offensive line moves now, the way they are moving and positioning their bodies when the ball is snapped, it may be that we have the type of personnel that can do that better than, say, if we were just lining up and coming hard off the ball going forward. We may not be as good in that area. So there's I think the ability to teach, the ability to know what you're doing, to figure out schemes, to have the right personnel in the game, and I think, boy, we've mastered that. It's unbelievable to see those offensive linemen blocking the way they have done this season.
Did you have to go into Google, like many thousands of fans have had to do, and figure out what is a fullback?
No, I'm very familiar with that. And, Smoak, I tell you that to watch them, I think Abram doesn't really run like a fullback. I mean, he's, you think of a fullback being a big guy, they put a big fullback like Doyle in. I mean, that's what you consider a fullback. But Abram is not as big. But he runs so tough. I mean, he plants that foot, turns upfield, and he is bringing it. And he has the speed to match. So I'm just really impressed with the Baylor offense. And we haven't even gotten around to talking about that quarterback yet. So, but that's another issue. But yeah, the running backs are extremely. They're working efficiently this year. But really, really impressed with Abram.
Yeah, so let's talk about that quarterback then, Walter. He just threw his first interception the other day. Yeah, it was in the end zone. The defense rallied and made sure it didn't ultimately matter. And then the offense, of course, made sure it didn't matter at all down the stretch. But how impressive have you been with Gary this year?
I've been really impressed with him. I mean, it's just difficult to watch and not be impressed with him. Here's a young man who is playing within himself. He's not being asked to do something he's not not good at doing or comfortable doing. He's playing exactly the way he needs to play. And I give credit to Jeff Grimes and the offensive coaches for keeping him within himself. And he's been effective doing that. And we haven't asked him to run a whole lot. He's just handing that ball off. He's letting his linemen block. He's making smart plays. And when he does have to pass, if y'all notice, he has a lot of time to set his feet and throw the ball. And that's an efficient running offense. I couldn't be more impressed than I am.
What have you made, Walter, of Dave Aranda rolling the dice? Now, analytics have often been something that he looks at first, and they often have pointed him in the direction of, like, yeah, this makes sense to go for it in this situation. I think there was, some of those 4th and shorts last week. You see the confidence in the offense, but also the situations made sense to go for it. But what do you think of sort of the aggressive style of play calling, so to speak, on those, 4th down type of plays?
I agreed with every call that he's made on 4th down all season except one, and that was against Oklahoma State when we made a call in 4th down in our own territory, and I just didn't see the upside. We still had 8 minutes to go on the clock. There wasn't a real need to do that, but hey, man. I'm sitting here in an armchair, and it's easy for me to make that call. They're down on the field. They're in the moment. And so they saw something that maybe I didn't see. They decided to do it. Just didn't work out. And I think it ended up hurting us. But that's why those guys are coaches, and that's why I'm a former commentator.
Former, but you still know the game. That's why we have you on.
But to your point, I mean, that I remember that play too, and that one was a little bit questionable. Yeah. But for the most part, you've got faith in your offense to pick up a yard, and that's something, Walter, they never would have been able to do last year. Like 4th and 2, forget about it. There's no chance. But now it's 4th and 3. They're like, all right, let's run the football. It's just been an amazing departure from a year ago.
And I'll tell you what it does. It builds confidence in your offensive line. You got your wide receivers out there. They're wanting to go for it. Everybody's wanting to win this game. And you can see if the quarterback walks in and says, guys, you know what, we're going to get this first down. Let's do everything we can to do. Let's block our tails off. Let's get it done. And they go up to that line of scrimmage. And I mean to tell you, they just get it done. And so I think it breeds confidence in your linemen, in your offensive unit, and it exercises your will. And the message that it gives the defense can be pretty demoralizing. I mean, it is, we're going to come up here and we're going to make you stop us. And until you stop us, we're going to challenge you every dadgum 4th down there is. And so I love their aggressiveness, and it's been working wonders for our team.
So let me ask you about Dave Aranda. And as you know, Walter, he's got a little Grant Taft to him. And then again, he's his own unique guy, and he seems like this is a perfect fit. And, of course, we understand the college profession, the coaching. We saw what happened with Ed Orgeron, who just 2 years ago won a national title, whatever. Don't you feel like this is kind of a unique – he's almost like a Scott Drew, Grant Taft type for Baylor football?
Well, it's interesting you said that. I totally agree with that. I was just reading a comment where he talked about mastering your craft. Mm-hmm. And that sounds very much to me like a Grant Taft phrase or a Chuck Noll phrase, where you are mastering your craft. That means that everything you're doing, whether it be off the field, on the field, in the weight room, doing conditioning, you're getting better. And that message resonates with players, because if you buy into it, then everything you do is going to be headed toward the goal that you've set as a team. And so all of that is right in line with Coach Taft, right in line with Scott Drew, right in line with Chuck Noll, some of the great ones. And so I read that, and I was that's pretty impressive for a young coach. I do consider Dave young. He's still pretty young, but anyway, he's got the minds of his players, and what's impressive is that he's only been here a couple of years, and they're buying into what he's selling.
Walter, you and I traded a text or two with you earlier, and you're the one that gave me the heads up about Dr. Derwin Gray, who was on campus. He has a church in South Carolina near Charlotte. just outside really the suburbs of Charlotte. He played at Judson High School. He's going to join us today in an interview that I recorded with him at 5:30. What were your thoughts about his appearance today with Baylor Athletics?
Man, he was pretty impressive. I got to admit that I didn't really know him before, had not really heard of him, but he came in and I'm just really told it how it was. I think he spoke out of the scripture, and he talked about, coming together as a nation, and it was all biblically based. And what a very impressive young man. He is, he's out of the, he grew up kind of in the tough side of San Antonio, African American, talented athlete, but wasn't recruited by a lot of schools in the Big 12 or the Southwest Conference at the time. And so he goes to BYU. Can you imagine, what it must have been like for him? But he said he learned something there, which was, how to meet people where they are. And he said once he learned that, he began speaking the language of the people that were there. And he said that, I think that common ground that he was able to find is what helped him get through the experience at BYU, but also helped him grow as a person.
Yeah, and we're going to have that today at 5:30. Walter Abercrombie, a former Baylor running back, now runs the Baylor Letter Winners Association, which is always something that juggles some of the great names, Walter, right, in the Baylor history. You can release a great class, but it's never enough, is it?
It's never enough, man. And I'm really excited about the upcoming about the Hall of Fame event in the next 2 weeks. We're really excited about that because some of the people that you're talking about, those great ones, we're going to be honoring them and inducting them in the Hall of Fame on Friday night, the 29th of October. So I hope folks to come out and support these people that are going into the Hall of Fame.
Walter, I know it'll be kind of far out, but I think there's some Hall of Fame candidates on this football team. I was just curious, your thoughts when you see the Jalen Petries, the Treston Ebners, the Dylan Doyles, and we've talked about a lot of the other guys as well, the Gary Bohannons, but just the makeup of this team and some of the all-time type of performances we've seen from these guys. I mean, what are your thoughts as they get to kind of collectively, catch their breath a little bit and then, go on this second half run?
Well, I do think you're starting to see stars emerge. These players on the field last year for us, some of them, of course, Petrie, what an unbelievable player he is. He's become sort of a fan favorite. Everybody loves him. He's such a hard-working player, exciting player to watch. Dylan Doyle has been a huge surprise, I think, to a lot of folks. He was a great linebacker, but whoever would have thought that he could step in the backfield or line up as a fullback and go out for a pass. I never thought about that, but I think that young man probably made him a little bit of money Saturday by showing the NFL scouts that he's capable to play both sides of the field. Ebner, everybody's greatest player. If you're a Baylor fan, Treston Ebner, he can do it all. Boy, he showed some speed on Saturday, although he didn't have the kick returns that we normally see him do. But, man, he was able to turn the corner. And when you can turn the corner and stay and outrun people's angle, that means you got some kind of engine in you, and he does. But, Abram Smith, and we talked about Bernard, just an unbelievable player. These players are emerging, and they're emerging as really superstars. And Bohannon, just not throwing as many interceptions as he's thrown, and I couldn't be more pleased or impressed with this football team. And think about the lack of, penalties that they've had this year. Pretty amazing. That tells me that there's something going on with this Baylor program that I think is going to surprise a lot of folks here in the next few years.
Walter, thank you very much for your time as always. Appreciate you. Thanks for your time, Walter Abercrombie. That Hall of Fame class that he was mentioning, is going to be on the night before they play Texas. It's going to be a basketball-centric class. It is Scott Drew's first ever recruiting class. Mamadou Jen, Aaron Bruce, Henry Dugat, Curtis Geralds, and Kevin Rogers. We had every single one of them. Aaron Bruce was in Australia, so we did not get him during their run to win the national title back in the spring of this year. So that's October 29th at the Waco Convention Center. Of course, they had numerous sports are always being a part of that as well. All right, when we come back, Purdue. Wow. What they did to Iowa and did it emphatically. And now all of a sudden they're kind of like waking up at 4-2 and what Jeff Brom's done. We'll hear from Tom Dienhart. He's covered the Big Ten for years, covers Purdue specifically, and he's next on Sikkim 365 Radio.
The bad news, computer chip shortages have negatively affected all vehicle inventory worldwide, but the good news is General Motors has announced they are restarting production and will release a steady flow of vehicles through the fall. Cars and trucks are coming, so now's the time to contact Richard Carr and get your name on a new Buick, GMC, or Cadillac as they are being shipped. Get your name on their first-in-line priority list, and you can get your car or truck first as they arrive. If you're looking for a pickup, we'll get the best. How about a Sierra from Richard Carr? The ideal combo of power and strength combined with refinement and luxury makes Sierra the best truck on the road. If you want a roomy SUV, consider Buick and their lineup of SUVs offering size and versatility to fit every lifestyle. Or maybe you want the ultimate combo of sophistication and power with a new Cadillac XT6 or Escalade. Cars and trucks are coming, so again, call or contact Richard Carr online with what you want and let them get you on that first-in-line priority list. And if you're looking to save and drive today, well, they're also loaded with premium pre-owned cars and trucks that have all gone through a 172-point inspection. And with dozens of lenders, Richard Carr says yes when others say no, as 100% credit approval is always the goal. So go online or come by for a test drive today. And for those in the greater Waco area, Richard Carr is your local hometown dealership, so give them a chance to earn your business with great prices, free oil changes on new cars and trucks, and superior service after the sale. Richard Carr Motors, owned and operated and run by loyal and proud Baylor Bears.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me.
Refinance your vehicle today at Genco with rates as low as 1.69% for 48 months and have 90 days of no payments. Refinancing can lower your payment, so you pay less for your car. Apply online and get an additional 0.1% off our already low rate. Thank you, Genco. And don't forget, your vote counts. Vote today for your local school to win $1,500 with Genco's School Spirit Competition. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice, subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Hey, This is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive. It's a staple of the Waco economy. And you're about to approach this time of the year where you have the holidays, special gifts. It's not that you don't have that every single day. What are some of the things you have coming up?
Christmas is the biggest time of year for engagements. You know, we kind of call ourselves the wedding ring store. We do all of our own custom work in-house. I've got 2 expert jewelers on staff every day. We can make anything from scratch. We kind of pride ourselves, probably 9 out of 10, every engagement ring we do is actually made custom to what the customer wants.
People look at that, oh my God, I can't afford it. I can't afford something like that. You've shown me examples that you could fit pretty much any budget.
It doesn't cost any more to custom make something. You still have gold, you still have diamonds, and you still have labor. Best thing about a custom piece is if you have any old jewelry or heirloom jewelry or something passed down from a grandma or somebody, we can take that jewelry and use it towards your wedding ring for the sentimental value, and then you've got the product, and then it's just a little bit of labor and a little bit of design on your part of what you actually want.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
You know, every week and every day, basically, on this show, we try to look back at the weekend, and then as the week progresses, look ahead to some of the better games coming up this week. But what a win for Purdue against number 2 Iowa, coming off their win against Penn State at number 2 in the country. And Tom Dienhart covers Purdue football for goldenblack.com. It's Gold and Black Illustrated with also a part of Rivals in the Yahoo Sports Network, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Tom, I think Purdue's had Iowa's numbers at times, but was that staggering what you saw on Saturday?
Jeff Brom is 4-1 against the Hawkeyes, if you can believe it. And yes, it was staggering. I guess not that Purdue won, but they won in the fashion that they did, 24-7. And it really wasn't even that close, honestly. They got Iowa out of the rhythm very early on. Purdue got a lead. The Iowa offense had to throw more than it wanted to. That set Purdue up to get after the quarterback. They got 4 turnovers, 4 sacks. The defense really set the tone, and Purdue comes away with one of the biggest wins of this college football season. That's at the halfway point.
Tom, coacheshotseat.com, and I know it's not they don't have an exact science because coaching hot seats are not, but all year long they've had Jeff Brom up towards the top of that hot seat list. He gets the win over Iowa, and I'm looking at it right now. He's completely out of their top 20 or so, just completely done. Was there ever really hot seat concerns on Jeff Brom, or was it more just speculation based on the fact how the last season and a half had gone for him?
Not really a hot seat, just because Purdue cannot afford to buy him out, honestly. They don't have the money to write those checks those SEC schools can write to make coaches go away. There was a sense of urgency. That may be a better way to phrase it. Again, that never imperiled losing his job this year, regardless of the record. But how he does this year would certainly set up for an interesting 2022. That's when things could get kind of dicey, I think, and interesting. So, Purdue has not been to a bowl the last 2 years. They need to show progress. They've got to get to some postseason destination this year. I don't care where it is. You got to get to 6-6, show progress, keep the fan base interested and optimistic. Good thing for Brom is they certainly are on course there. They're at 4-2. With a few winnable games down the stretch here. So it looks like he's safe and sound thus far, at least for the short term here in West Lafayette.
So, Tom, we know that at top 25 rankings, those can come and go quickly. And, you find yourself in there, you turn around, you lose the game, and you're right back out. But for Purdue to be ranked in the top 25 for the first time in 14 years, a stat I saw earlier, I mean, what does that mean for this football program?
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
I think that was the longest drought of any Power 5 league that was currently out of the polls. So 2007 was the last time they were there. We talked to Coach Brom today about that. He obviously doesn't really care about poll rankings, as you would imagine. But the fans love that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that certainly shows progress on Brom's standpoint. So I'm not sure if they merit it, but they're there nonetheless. They're not in the coaches' poll. But, again, Purdue's got a number by its name of 25. Wisconsin Badgers rolling to town this weekend. The Badgers have beaten Purdue 14 times in a row, guys.
Oof.
And this is a big one. This is a Wisconsin team. It's not vintage Wisconsin. Very vulnerable. So, back in 2018, Purdue beat number 2 Ohio State in a very emotional game, but they did not capitalize on it. They lost the next week at Michigan State. I guess the goal for Purdue is to try to build some momentum off this big win in Iowa City, right? You can't let it dissipate. You got to take advantage of it. Keep rolling. Like I said, here comes Wisconsin, a team that you owe, and a team that's had your number, and a team that is very vulnerable. So it'll be very interesting to see how Purdue comes out Saturday if they keep this mojo going.
That West in the Big Ten, the East has 4 teams ranked in the top 10 with Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Penn State, and all of them have been good. And Iowa obviously had beaten Penn State 2 weeks ago. And then you have Iowa, and now, as you mentioned, and Craig brought up Purdue back to being ranked. Iowa seems to be head and shoulders, but does this not open the door from what looked like would be an easy roll for Iowa into the championship game?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that Big Ten West. You're right. If you look at their schedule, now they're off this week, the Hawkeyes are. Got a chance to lick their wounds and figure things out. But if you look at their schedule, it still sets up for Iowa to win that division, I think. I don't want to totally discount Minnesota just yet. And Purdue still really does have a shot, although it's probably going to be a long shot. But again, I still think Iowa's the team to beat, despite that loss last weekend at home. Maybe that's what they need. And you probably end up going to have an Iowa-Ohio State showdown in Indianapolis for that Big Ten championship in early December.
Tom Dienhart covers Purdue, and the Boilermakers coming off the huge win against Iowa. Iowa's a team that has forced a lot of turnovers. They didn't get that against Purdue. Is that something that they have to be elite?
Yeah, and I think that was, some people thought it was smoke and mirrors. Iowa was 6-0. That offense, guys, I'll be honest with you, the Iowa offense is not impressive. It's not a vintage Iowa offensive line. The quarterback is average. They got some decent receivers. They have a good tight end, but they really struggle offensively, and that offense was getting a big boost from all those takeaways. Led the nation with 20 takeaways, 16 interceptions. They had scored 3 defensive touchdowns in the first 6 games. So they were getting a big boost from that defense. And if you're not going to get that every week, right? And Purdue's got a pretty salty defense, and they were able to, like I said early on, sort of contain that Iowa offense. So, like I said, turnovers are an elixir to a lot of things and cover up a lot of warts on the team. And that's certainly been the case for Iowa. I still don't think it's a great Iowa team, but it's certainly be the best of sort of a pedestrian a lot of teams in that Big Ten West.
Their wide receiving core at Purdue is one of the best in the country. Where do you rank it in the Big Ten and in the country with the depth they've been able to get at that position? And if Jeff Brom could get a consistent quarterback, would people maybe start to notice a little bit more?
Yeah. It's a solid group of receivers. There's a lot of good wideout cores in the nation, fellas. I don't profess to know them all, but I know Ohio State, just in the Big Ten's got a very, very good group of wideouts. Purdue, of course, has David Bell. Phenomenal game last Saturday, maybe a future first-round draft choice. TJ Sheffield out of the slot. Brock Thompson. They're a nice, solid group of wideouts. The thing that was unique about Saturday for Purdue was they willingly played 3 quarterbacks. It was quite a sight, guys. They were shuffling guys in for a while, and Jeff Brom spent the offseason looking for ways to spruce up his offense in the red zone, right? They were kicking too many field goals, not scoring enough touchdowns. The ground game was abysmal. How are they going to move the ball on the ground? How are they going to generate touchdowns in the red zone? Jeff Brom hatched this plan to use 3 quarterbacks, sort of change the pace guys, and it worked. It worked for one Saturday at least. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves for Purdue, how heavily they continue to use it. But give Jeff Brom credit for trying to find a solution. Finding the solution and coming up with that big win Saturday to keep this season filled with hope for the Boilermakers.
Well, I had just somebody on our chat room, by the way, Tom said, I remember when Tom used to write for the Sporting News. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Back in the day.
I'm an old man now.
Yeah, well, you and I, we're both old men. So I'm not saying you are. I'm 62, but I do know that I've watched you cover the Big Ten for quite some time, and obviously that's why we reached out with you on Purdue as well after their win. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Thanks, Tom.
You guys take care. Thanks for having me.
Tom Dienhart, Gold and Black Illustrated, Rivals and Yahoo. Again, former writer for the Sporting News. He's been covering the Big Ten forever, covers Purdue.
I feel like I've been reading his stuff for a really long time. Yeah, and, you know, so cool to talk to him. And, yeah, what a huge win for Purdue. I mean, I said at the start of the show that was my biggest win this weekend. You know, there were other wins that mattered, and it certainly had ramifications, but that was a big win. And, you know, obviously – you know, the thing about college football is you got to keep it going. You know, all that's for naught if you turn right around and you get waxed the following contest. But hey, to be 4-2, to and they lost some guys like Rondale Moore. You know, they don't have him in the arsenal. They're using 3 quarterbacks, so they didn't have much of a running game like most don't against Iowa. But I did notice King Daru was their leading rusher. Remember Baylor recruiting him very hard. Matt Rule really wanted him a couple years back, and he ended up going to Purdue. But looks like he's doing okay for himself, which is good to see. And, yeah, what a nice win and a fun race shaping up in the Big Ten as we start to hit this stretch run.
Yeah, by the way, if you want to get off coacheshotseat.com, just beat the number 2 team in the country convincingly in their place.
It didn't help Orgeron when he beat Florida, and they weren't number 2. I know that. But the Big Ten Conference, the Eastern Division, Michigan State's 4-0 in the conference. Michigan 3-0. Ohio State 3-0. Penn State 2-1. They're all going to start beating each other up. None of them have played, and they have to because they're in the same division, with the only loss being Penn State losing at Iowa. Now a half game up on Minnesota, who kind of got themselves right back in it, beating a team that everybody beats in Nebraska. And Purdue's win against Iowa, instead of 1-2 and Iowa's 4-0, they're 2-1 and just a half game back and on a tiebreaker. In fact, if something crazy happens.
But by the way, Smoky, you know who the number 1 on Coach's Hot Seat is this week?
No, it should be Scott Frost.
I was going to ask you. I just looked at that too. And Jeff Scott of USF has been a consistent number 1 or number 2 on this thing as well all year long. He's been like near the top of the list the entire time. And now you got, the Manny Diaz's and those guys starting to move up, matriculate towards the top. But Scott Frost is number 1. And I was curious, your thoughts. We were talking last week about how they've caught some bad breaks. They've made some insanely stupid mistakes to cost themselves opportunities in games. But you were admitting to seeing some progress, and at least if they could clean some things up, there's some promise there. Are you feeling any differently after just another weekend?
I am, and let me tell you why. They're a dumb football team. They remain a dumb football team. They played their what's off and what they did and almost beat Michigan, but they would have turned around and lost to Minnesota probably anyway. I don't understand some of what they do. I am not one of those. If you've ever been fired, no matter the reasons, you never want to see somebody else. But Scott Frost has been a disaster. That's what I said. I thought last week after how they played Michigan, after they had beaten the hell out of Northwestern, okay, let this thing play itself out. And I think you still let it play itself out. But they are just a wreck. And I mean they have as much what they've done to themselves has been what others have done to them. It really is. It's sad.
It's unbelievable to watch a team hurt itself as much as they do consistently. Like it really is almost astonishing that a team can hurt itself as much as they do at times.
Every game.
Yeah, I know.
It's every game. It's
inevitable.
Even when they've won, it's still special teams mistakes, and it's a nightmare. And it's field goal kicker kicks a 51-yarder. He's missed 3 to 5 extra points. Field goals that missed a critical one when they were at the 1, the 9, and the 29 at Minnesota and did not score.
I'm going to do an old school mental political cartoon for you. If you have to imagine
please
this.
Do it. I mean, put it
so
out.
here's the cartoon I'm drawing. It's a
Charlie Brown and Lucy.
No, it's a Nebraska football player laying in a hospital bed with a cast on his foot, and the doctor going, "This is the 8th time you've shot yourself in the foot this year. Yeah. You've got to stop doing this."
Though,
you may want to also look inside if they have anything in their chest as well.
They do, though. I don't know how Nebraska fans are, week by week just dealing with it because it's so incredibly frustrating to watch. You know, it'd be one thing if you were just like, we've seen bad football teams like at Kansas. Kansas knows, like, they're not supposed to beat anybody right now. They've got a lot of work to do. And you know, Lance Leipold's trying to do that work, but they got a long way to go. But at least you know that when Nebraska, like, I think fans probably know they're not a great football team by any means. That's stating the obvious. But to have to watch a team that's maybe a little bit above or below average, like, make themselves be so below average, it's just hard to watch.
I'd rather take the quick shot of, you know, getting blown out right away in a game than watch my team dangle it in front of me only to, you know, at the end.
It's just bad. And I mean, there was a time they were actually, and we say it because that's my favorite team. He's Oklahoma, Florida State. So we bring all that into the play, and we give them way too much credit. They make me sick to my damn stomach. All right, when we come back, we're not done. We will wrap up this 4 o'clock hour. At 5 o'clock, we will take calls and also go over text messages as well. And at 5:30, Dr. Derwin Gray, motivational speaker, pastor from South Carolina, former Brigham Young Cougar, and also played at Converse Judson, NFL player with the Colts and Panthers, will join us at 5:30. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, they are loaded up with what they have, with more and more discounts for what they have on their at their dealership. And, you know, you hear all the time now, there's a lot of things going on. Some dealerships cannot get cars. Well, one thing about Allen Samuels, they have so many dealerships, at times it allows them to have more than what others have because they have dealerships throughout the country. For example, right now, the prestigious Jeep Heritage is obvious. The Grand Cherokee L, the Jeep Grand Cherokee L. The first responders get an extra $500 cash for you, and the 2021 Jeep Cherokee Laredo, or the Limited, has total values of $3,500 or 0% for 72 months going on right now. Also, the 2021 Ram brand received the first place in prestigious J.D. Power's quality study. So did Dodge. They were second. Both. Those are brands that are on the lot at Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. And speaking of the Ram, the J.D. Power honor, we told you about that. 2021 Ram 1500 Quad Cab, the Lone Star. You get up to values of $6,000 or 2.9% for 72 months, plus a $2,000 bonus cash. That's going on right now. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Ted Teague & Company, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
We're going to open the phone lines up at 5 o'clock today. We have about a 25 or 30-minute window. We would love to hear from you. Many things of who had the best weekend, thoughts about Purdue's win against Iowa. I do have one thing that I wanted to bring up. Iowa just lost to unranked Purdue, and Purdue's 4-2, and then Jeff Brom's 4-1. Sometimes regional rivalries or things are weird how teams beat certain teams. Oklahoma has their Achilles. Kansas State was Texas's during even the elite years or whatever. Everyone has them. But so they won the game, and they won convincingly. It was a bad loss for Iowa. But Iowa went from number 2 in the country to number 11. And maybe they should have dropped that far. I'm not arguing how far they dropped. What I'm arguing, though, is Alabama the week before, in a dramatic loss, at Texas A&M dropped from number 1 to like number 5. They dropped 5 spots. I'm not trying to compare which was the better loss. Obviously, Alabama at A&M, but both teams were unranked. Alabama's game was a last-second deal. I get that. But Iowa had just beaten number 4 Penn State. It's like that game doesn't count. And it sets up what I say a lot. And this is not – I love Alabama. I hope Alabama wins like 3 or 4 in a row. And I just lost Bob Williams as a viewer because I said
yeah, they've already won enough.
But I understand there's like this, you're worn out with him. But I love how Nick Saban coaches. I just love it. It makes me jealous. But they went from 1 to 5. Iowa loses. They go from 2 to 11. And they had just beaten 4.
Well, and let's face it, they're totally done as far as the playoff goes. But Alabama is still going to hang around, and that's part of it is just the competition that they're playing. But no, you have a point. And I mean, I think unless you are just the most biased person in the world, it's pretty easy to see week to week how certain teams from certain conferences shuffle compared to elsewhere. And there's always a built-in reason for why. Well, it's because the level of competition, or for a lot of voters, it's just that they don't knock Bama because they just assume Bama's still going to be great and it doesn't matter and they're not going to lose anymore. And
they may not.
And they may not, but I mean that's not really the way it's supposed to work necessarily.
Let them go get themselves back.
Let them go earn it. They don't necessarily always have to earn it the same way other teams have to earn it. They don't get dug as deep as other teams do when they lose, and it's because they're given the benefit of the doubt because of what they've done previously. And look, that's something that's to their credit. They've earned that sort of benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, it isn't fair. It isn't fair to the rest of the country when you suffer the same kind of a loss and you're dropping double the spots because you haven't won multiple national titles in the last 10 years or just been consistently in the playoff. I mean, I get why. I think we all get why. But I think we're all lying to ourselves if we don't say, like, even though we get why and even though it's understandable, it's still not really right in the grand scheme of things, to penalize others worse for the same kind of loss.
It's setting up for them to go run the table
They'll be right
again.
back in it, yeah.
Perhaps they'll have to beat Auburn. They'll have to beat some other people. But it's setting up for them to play Georgia in the championship game. And even with 2 losses, if they were to lose that game, they would find a way. It would almost like college football can survive without blue bloods. All of them. They can. The playoff will be fine without Alabama. And I think they'll probably be a part of it. I don't think that right now they would beat Georgia, but again, they don't have to play Georgia right now. That's not until early December. But LSU's having a very average year. Mississippi State, Arkansas was a fun story for a while. They've run out of gas at 1-3. Missouri's terrible. Vanderbilt, South Carolina,
LSU.
Florida has been now exposed to who they are with their quarterback play being erratic. Tennessee, think about it. And so that's my only point. And I had some people coming at me yesterday over it. I put that up, and then I had a lot of people all of a sudden, wait a minute, you might be right with this. And it's just something that I see, and I see it too often.
If Iowa loses in the exact same situation, they're still dropping further than Alabama just because of the name. It's true. That's how it works. And there are certain teams that get the benefit of the doubt more. And again, I understand to an extent why, because it's Alabama and Nick Saban, and you just know, hey, they're still one. They could lose 3 games in a row. They're still one of the best teams in the country. I mean, they can make an argument every week, no matter how many games they lose, but losses should matter the same for everybody. And, there should be something said for, hey, losing in a close game versus losing by a couple of scores. But, yeah, there's definitely a difference in the way teams drop versus the way a lot of other teams drop.
The biggest problem I think college football has when we look at rankings and who's better than who is, it honestly does not matter what happened in 2020, in 2021. And even more so, it doesn't matter what happened in 2013, in 2021. But we as a collective college football watching audience cannot divorce ourselves on a year-to-year thing, because really the only thing that matters for a playoff and anything now is what's happening now, not what happened a year ago. The best playoff you can make is the 4 best teams right now,
which is what they had the committee to do. And I don't know if they've always done it right.
But you can't, because you have it in your head. It's one of those things that's just in our collective subconscious as college football fans. I know individually we can debate that, but I'm talking about the we of college football people. It's just the majority will be like, well, Alabama's always,
Well, they're really good.
Yeah, they are.
They had an off night. They did kind of hurt themselves. There was a lot of things to give A&M credit for jumping on their butt right off the top and making that thing all the way to the end. And even they blew the lead, came back and won the lead, and tied it and then won. It's not that Alabama's not really good, and maybe they are the second best team in the country, but sometimes let them earn it a little bit, not just because of who their coach is or who they might be in 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, if Craig and Jennifer Smoaky, and then I'm going to use this example, when they were little kids, and there's a cookie jar, and they both ate the cookies out of the cookie jar when they weren't supposed to, was the punishment the same for both of them?
Say that again?
Was it so if they both broke the rules, they both ate cookies when they told not to eat cookies before dinner?
Yes.
You knew there were 12 cookies in the jar, they ate 6 and 6. Each of them ate 6, and there's no cookies and nobody can have any. They got the same punishment, right?
Well, I would punish Craig more because he should have taught his sister better.
but you get my point.
Yeah, you're right.
You're kind of into it right there. Yeah. So Iowa should have known better than to lose. That's what you just did. That's what college football people are doing.
Jeff Grimm saying, I truly believe why Iowa fell as far as they did is because their offense most of the year, they just beat the number 4 ranked team. And I know, Jeff, you're a huge Bama fan. You're very, very real about it, too. But they just beat number 4. It's like that game didn't count.
Yeah, no, I think that, the committee does look at maybe something they were waiting to be able to officially confirm, like the Iowa offense is like, okay, now we can go full bore with, hey, we don't believe in the Iowa offense is going to be able to be good enough for them to remain in the upper tier. And I can understand now having that confirmation. And we also have to, guys, we have to acknowledge the big thing in the room is that losing to an unranked Purdue team by 3 scores is way different than losing on the road to a ranked team.
No.
Or was A&M not ranked?
They were unranked at the same time.
So
and
what?
it just lost to Mississippi State.
It was at the buzzer. It was a walk-off field goal. It was a 24-7 game. So, there's a huge difference there in the types of losses. We need to at least acknowledge that. But yes, I still maintain that Bama slides less than any other team when they lose. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm talking 4 spots compared to 9. And if it would have been somewhat close, and A&M had just lost at home to Mississippi State. It's like that game didn't count when you talk about who they were, although they were a highly ranked team at the start of the year then fell down because of the loss of – well, I don't even know if it was because of the quarterback. It was because their offense was kind of average, just like Iowa's, I guess, is.
Here's the deal, too. I wouldn't be surprised if some voters are looking ahead at the schedule and just going ahead and assuming, other than Auburn, who are they losing to the rest of the way?
That's true. So we might as well just leave them here because they're not going to
go anywhere.
There's nothing wrong with letting them earn their way back up, and they most likely will. And I really am not against dynasties. I think they're great for sports. All right, when we come back, the 5 o'clock hour, 254-339-1122. We opened up the show with this. Who had the better weekend? Purdue, Oklahoma State, Caleb Williams, UT San Antonio being ranked. I know that doesn't fill a lot of your maybe what you want, but that's a great story with our great friend Jeff Traylor, or Baylor with what they did to Brigham Young. Name one. Name somebody. 254-339-1122, and this is Sikkim 365 Radio.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. I've been talking for a month about their amazing array of bourbons, high-end bourbons, Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Houghton Young, and Bardstown. Look, it's fall. It's autumn now. They've got autumnal beers coming in, that craft beer selection. They got some really good, I'm sure, Oktoberfest stuff that's come in and rotate out. Plus, we're about to get into some of the winter stuff with the craft beers that they have, always churning the roster of those beers. That's what Steve Chapman does there. Churned in and out. So if you're a beer fan, walk in that fridge there, make your selections, and then you'll probably be back again the next week after you finish that round for the next round of good stuff they have at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. They've got a great speedy drive-through window. They got great customer service and just great people all the way around. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
New cars and trucks are coming. New car inventory is low, but GM just announced they'll release a steady flow of vehicles through the fall. Now is the time to get your name on Richard Carr's first in-line priority list and get a car or truck first. Call Richard Carr Motors or go online to discuss cars and trucks in transit today. Go to richardcarr.com for more details.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. And a long distance meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country-style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite cut of steaks from Select, Choice, or Prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strips, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full-service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
2nd and 15. Quick throw, and it's intercepted. He's got another one, and he's got a field ahead of him. Diggs is going to take it to the end zone. Unbelievable. Just when you think things are going your way, New England's going to stop and do something right. The fumble in week 1.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Tom Albers, staying in touch with you and your money through these difficult and changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
One real quick men's basketball note. Gonzaga ranked number 1 in the country. 55 of 63 first-place votes. UCLA, who took them to the last ounce of anything in the semis, is 2. Kansas 3, Villanova 4, Texas is 5, Baylor 8, Houston, also a Final Four team, along with Baylor, UCLA, and Gonzaga, is 15th. And so there we are with the AP Top 25. Meanwhile, KenPom, we've always discussed the ratings that they have all the data. They have Gonzaga, Michigan, Kansas, Baylor, Illinois as their top 5 based on right now. So basketball just around the corner. Will be fun to get back to getting a chance to talk to Scott Drew, his assistant coaches, and the players as well.
Yeah, one note, former Baylor star Ish Wainwright waived today by the Toronto Raptors. Unfortunate, but it was a roster move that, made sense for Toronto with what their choice was, and I think he'll probably find himself a landing spot somewhere else. He showed a lot in his time with Toronto, so cut, but I think he probably did enough to at least get a look around the rest of the league. So,
and Freddie got released about a week ago.
Yeah.
Freddie Gillespie. So that's a couple of guys on the Toronto roster.
You know what basketball is started to do really well is develop people in the other leagues, in Europe and in the G League and all that. So what football is harder to do. I understand that. But you don't see as many of guys coming from the CFL to the NFL, from some of the other leagues to the NFL. It's just like you kind of, once you're in the CFL, you're in the CFL. Unless you're Doug Flutie or something. But there's not as many as you would think there would be for guys getting back in the NFL. Basketball is starting to do a really good job of, around the world, developing talent that can be on the highest stage.
Well, I think there's just more opportunities now. Yeah, there's they have done a good job in development, but there are definitely more opportunities, thanks in part to the G League and things like that. So yeah, I'm sure they will have a parachute somewhere and we'll still be able to play hoops, but wish, they obviously both could have made it, and just unfortunate. It seemed like Toronto was not happy with having to make that decision. Like, they liked Ish a lot. It's just that, it's part of the deal. You got to cut your roster down.
Freddie made some money with what he did in that 10-day contract, and they signed him to another one, and so good luck with all that.
And this should be an incredible year for Big 12 hoops and college hoops in general. I think will be pretty sound. You mentioned teams like Michigan there, in the top 5, and definitely across the country will be a lot of good hoops, but particularly in the Big 12, I think, with Kansas and the expectations they have, with Baylor now coming off a national title, And, obviously there's a lot of love for Texas. And is this going to be like the football version where you just look at the logo and you look at the coach and you go like, oh, yeah, they're automatically a top 5? No, I mean, obviously they picked up some high-impact transfers. They're going to be an interesting combination of on that roster of guys who are already there and guys who have come in during the offseason. But there are a lot of expectations there. So Baylor, Kansas, Texas, and not to mention others, it's going to be a fun season.
Should be just a butcher shop walking into everywhere you go. Don't forget Huggy at West Virginia, Boynton, what he's doing at Oklahoma State Tech. All right, to the calls, 254-339-1122. Here's a text before we get to Chris, who's been on hold, and thank you very much. From the 440, a few years back, Ohio State lost to top 5 ranked Michigan State, dropped 8 spots the next week. Alabama lost to an unranked Ole Miss and dropped 1. Yes, there is SEC favoritism because they are financially in bed with ESPN. Well, okay. Chris,
all the people who are voting for him don't work for ESPN, though. I mean, that's the thing that's weird.
No,
bro, but there's a lot of SEC media, you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely some insulation there when it comes to some of the voting. I mean, there's definitely some of that.
All right, Paul.
Let's go to Chris in Missouri. You're on the Bet US caller line. Thanks for your extreme patience, kind sir.
Not a problem. Hey, it's good to talk to you guys today.
You too,
Chris.
Hey, question for you on the coaching. Okay, and maybe I'm crazy about this, but I just see this as a crazy year for hiring coaches. You've got LSU who's going to be looking for a coach. Miami probably will be looking for a coach. Florida State, Wisconsin, Penn State, USC. I mean, I see all these rich teams that potentially could be out there. And the one good thing is that you guys that couldn't get jobs like Eric Bieniemy and Byron Leftwich, this could be their shot. If the NFL slept on them, they could get into college and really do some good. But I think it's going to be a feeding frenzy because there are not a lot of good coaches out there. So this could set a new benchmark on coach salaries, and I just wanted to know what you guys were thinking.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't think a couple of those you mentioned, I don't think Florida State will because, again, like they just can't afford to keep paying buyouts to coaches. I think they'll have to ride that out for a while and see what happens. But I do think you're right. I mean, look, Nebraska looks like it's going to be open here now. But I mean, that one's weird because Trev Albert's not going to want to fire his buddy. That's going to be a hard thing for him to do. But he's got the job now. Florida, like Dan Mullen's got some heat on him now. He's lost 3 games, and 2 of them, they've kind of gotten waxed. By teams that and I know they were closer, but like the way you watch them, you're like, man, this guy's supposed to be a quarterback guru. What's going on here? There are, Syracuse could be open. Miami's probably going to be open. There is a lot of stuff that's going on. Plus, with conference realignment,
what you want to be careful of is not to get into a bidding war with yourself, but with others
and then, Jeff Scott at South Florida. Look, South Florida, if they're really a candidate for the Big 12, then that job becomes even more attractive than it would be before because you could be the guy who, South Florida spends big on to make sure their transition into the Power 5 is good. So, it's going to be an interesting offseason for coaches, and it's not, there's very few elite coaches. I mean, it takes a while to do that. So, the ground is not as fertile as maybe people may anticipate, and you have to hire who's right for you and who's best for you, and you have to have reasonable goals for your program in the short term.
Well, I think you're right about the most interesting part about this is just is the fact that there aren't a lot of surefire candidates. There's no like Tom Herman out there, where 3 or 4, whenever that was, 4 or 5 years ago, both LSU and Texas were hot on his trail trying to duel each other for his services, even though Texas was the foregone conclusion. But there's not like that guy right now in my mind. I mean, the name that everybody mentions when there's an opening now is Luke Fickell, but is USC or LSU the spot for him? Obviously, there's going to be some other jobs that open up as well, but there's not just like that. I don't know, maybe a Jeff Traylor starting to become kind of the young up-and-coming coach, but probably still definitely too early on for an LSU or USC, But, yeah, there's not I think because there's been so many coaching changes the last few years, there's not like a deep pool of guys that are ready for that next step up that you automatically think of. And, I guess that's why when LSU opened up, immediately everybody's on the Jimbo thing, but that's already been pretty much ruled out at this point. So, yeah, I'm fascinated to see what direction LSU goes. Fascinated to see what direction USC goes.
And it's just going to be a domino effect.
Yeah,
this is not but let's just say they get Franklin from Penn State. May not, probably, right. I don't know. Then guess who they go after, right?
Yeah.
Or if you take somebody else. It was good that Jimbo Fisher kind of addressed that again. You never know because of agents and all of that. But you're right, Craig.
Who knows?
If Franklin left, Penn State's probably going, stupid Carolina Panthers.
Yeah. Well, typically, okay, let's say if LSU opened up, you'd kind of have, typically I would think a pretty good idea of who you'd look at. And right now I think it's completely up in the air of who you're going to look at. And if you're USC, typically you'd probably have that name that, and that's why James Franklin's the automatic that everybody goes to. But, who the heck knows where they actually go with this thing? Who knows what in their minds they want to do as far as the direction of this thing goes? But also to your point, not only is this, interesting coaching carousel, but the Eric Bieniemys and those types of coaches, the Byron Leftwiches, I think Byron Leftwich is probably pretty satisfied in the NFL because he seems like a guy who's going to be a head coach in the NFL probably in the future. And you would think Eric Bieniemy would be as well, but for whatever reason that keeps bypassing him every single year. I don't know what their intentions are, if they would rather be in the NFL or not. But, it should allow for some fresh blood potentially to enter its way into college football.
But what will happen is this guy goes, he's gone, he goes over here. He fills that place. And from Jeff Grimm, who's an Alabama fan, I agree, Craig. Bama and Clemson always get credit for what we have accomplished, not what we are currently. Now, they've evaporated. People kind of realized that. So that's an interesting comment from an actual Alabama fan who's always very realistic.
And then there's no issue in saying like, hey, sometimes we get the benefit of the doubt. That's just hey, it is what it is, and we've outlined the reasons for why that is, and so it makes some sense at least. But in the other case, there's too many mulligans. Like you only get so many, and for Clemson, they used all theirs up relatively early, and it's kind of odd, right, to not even be thinking about them in regards to the big picture landscape this year.
Well, from Scott of Casterly Rock, as an A&M fan, I guarantee you that beating Bama is way better than beating Iowa. I'm not saying that you're wrong. You're not listening to what I was saying. Is that the amount of time or spaces Iowa dropped, losing to an unranked team the week after they beat the number 4 team. Something has to come into consideration there. Because the team that beat Bama, the week before they had lost to Mississippi State and played out of their gourd, won the game, was an incredible win. That's the point. Don't try to say, I'm not
saying Bama's not better than Iowa, just saying that like there's different drops for different teams depending on who you are. It's not, and the rankings aren't an exact science, but there's definitely some massaging of the rankings that occurs. And like I said earlier, Bama's loss was different than Iowa's, so it's not even an exact comparison to begin with. But you can see where that occurs, and whether or not that's healthy for college football is an argument everybody can have. But I do think there's some reasons at times to do that, but you shouldn't always protect certain teams just because you automatically think, but they're still good. But okay, but they're still Bama.
Okay.
It shouldn't. That's not how you should do it.
This is why the 12-team playoff though is good, because
you're right.
It can maybe alleviate this choke point of this ridiculous elitism where, if you don't do this perfectly based on who you are. You don't have to, that's the point of having a bigger playoff. College basketball, there have been college basketball teams have been in the Final Four. Like the UCLA this last year. Had they not done if they had the standards of college football, we wouldn't have got to see Johnny Juzang.
Yeah.
And all these things.
Ohio State this year, Paul, has beaten who?
They've beaten.
Doesn't matter. I'm not trying. They beat Minnesota. Yeah. Akron, Tulsa, Rutgers, and Maryland. Now, they've beaten the hell out of some of them. They lost to Oregon. Ohio State right now is ranked 5th in the country. Where's Oregon?
Oregon would be after them, right?
They're 12th.
They're 12th because they lost to a team that was unranked.
But they had beaten Ohio State, and they beat them at Ohio State. That has to mean you can't forget about that game.
See, this is where the voters are looking at the fact that Oregon barely won this past week and are barely hanging on before turning into a full-blown hospital. Their trainer's table is overloaded. So I think that's and again, that's kind of like with the playoff rankings where Jeff Long used to spout the stuff about game control and whatever other bull S that he would use on a weekly basis, because it was such BS the way that would massage those rankings. One week it's game control, the next week it's time zone bodies, the next it was such a joke. But yeah, it is what it is. Some teams get the benefit of the doubt, like we said. And again, not arguing that Bama isn't one of the best teams in the country, but it is different. And I do think there are just different voters have different thoughts. Some may look at it as Oregon beat Ohio State, so they should be close to or above Ohio State. But others may look at it as Oregon beat Ohio State, But that was weeks ago, and look at where they are now. They're hanging on by a thread and nearly lost this weekend. So, I guess it's just really up to the individual voter when it comes down to that.
And sometimes losses to teams that aren't ranked but are in the conference, there are certain conference rivalries or certain series that are different. They're just you can't put a price tag on.
All right, enough about the rankings. What y'all think of what happened at Tennessee this weekend?
It was awful. I'm not one of those that's going to say they have to give up their football program. I've seen a lot of things. In fact, Armstrong. Paul, you give your opinion. Armstrong, do we have the threat of the guy who's a media member in Tennessee? I'm not trying to put him on the spot.
Well, here were their penalties. $250,000 financial penalty, which will be deducted from the university's share of SEC revenue distribution. There were some people that thought they'd get $1 million fine, and probably I think they probably should have, honestly, because I don't know that $250K is really that much of a deterrent in the long run. But, the SEC, to their credit, did have a statement right after that game. Greg Sankey, immediately had a statement ready to go and out on social media after that game wrapped up. But they'll be fined $250,000. Also be required to use all available resources, including security, stadium, and TV video, to identify individuals who threw objects onto the field or at the opposing team. All individuals identified as having been involved in disrupting the game will be prohibited from attending Tennessee athletics for the remainder of the academic and athletic year. They will also review and update the athletic department game management procedures and alcohol availability policies to prevent a recurrence of Saturday night's disruption, which shall include an evaluation of the agreed-upon SEC sportsmanship, game management, and alcohol policies to verify full compliance with existing standards. And following completion of this review and prior to the next home game, the university shall provide a report to the conference office to summarize its efforts to identify and penalize offenders and its plan to enact policies to prevent future incidents.
That alcohol thing is particularly interesting. If you go back a couple weeks ago, when the Chargers hosted the Raiders, it felt much more like the other way around. When you watched that game, they quit selling alcohol at halftime.
Yeah.
They quit selling alcohol at halftime because the Raiders fans, they didn't want to have to deal with what was coming.
I don't think it's fair what you're saying about Raiders fans.
Well, that's just what they did.
They're just a great group of people.
They're
very passionate.
Passionate's a good word for them. But what happened at Tennessee was ridiculous. And I guess maybe it was the alcohol, but you could see when you watched the replay, they got it right. Officials get so many things wrong, and rightfully so. We need to figure out how to make it the best way possible, but they got the call right. They did not mess it up. I know Tennessee fans are mad, but they got it right. And so I wondered it. I couldn't hear that. Of course, you couldn't hear the PA, but I kept wondering if they were going to have one of those Sam Weich moments. I remember back in the 80s, there was a Cincinnati Bengals picked up the microphone and said, "You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati, stop throwing stuff on the field." I kept waiting for Josh Heupel to be like, "Guys, we have to finish the game. We could all 3 timeouts." And they got the ball back, too.
Yeah. Could still have won the game.
If not for Joe Milton making a really boneheaded decision.
It was all about Lane Kiffin being in the stadium, period.
Yeah, it was.
That's why they threw things at Tennessee or at Ole Miss, because Lane Kiffin's a polarizing figure.
I saw a lot of, we've been through so much and some real victimhood on the part of some Tennessee fans about all they've been through and the bogus calls that have been called against them over the years. And it just seems like a fan base that, had enough, and that's kind of their excuse, at least for a minority of people that I saw on social media, at least, making an excuse for their actions. There was no valid excuse for what they were doing on Saturday night. And I saw one guy in particular. He was trying to compare the passion of Tennessee fans to those of soccer fans and how nobody blinks an eye because soccer fans, are known to be pretty crazy. Yeah, if you want to go that way and compare that way, so you get an excuse when somebody gets shot on the field and killed, because they also do that overseas in soccer games from time to time. It gets way across the line. So emotion, passion, spare me. There was no need to do all the shenanigans that were going on in Tennessee on Saturday night. That was a bad look. And whether Tennessee fans were proud about it afterwards, you can be as proud as you want to be, but and I know you don't care what the rest of the world thinks, obviously, but the rest of the world was looking at that going, that's a disgrace. That was a disgrace to the end of that football game, and what a fitting way for it to end. I was waiting for Tennessee to somehow win that game, but golly, that Joe Milton play was just, man, after the throw he had just made, too. Made a great throw right out of the gates, and then to just swallow the football on the sideline and go out of bounds. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like, that was the most unexciting finish to what was the craziest, hour of non-football with cameras positioned on a football game and no football actually happening. We sat there for an hour.
You know why?
We sat there for an hour.
They were hoping somebody else landed something.
I guess. But it was an hour, and then it was an hour, and then you get all the way to the point where you're finally playing, and that happens. It's just, it was ridiculous.
What if someone has a switchblade and they just launch it? It ends up in someone's neck.
Well, I mean, what if? Yeah, that would suck, and that would be awful. Thankfully, that didn't happen.
But that's something that the Vols fans were coming off a couple of wins. Offense was good. They were primed to beat Ole Miss. A decade's worth of frustration coming out at the end of the game. That's from BU_Bear, but still not a reason for what they did.
It's just it crossed the point after a certain stage. It just crossed the point where it's okay, I get frustration, but now you're just acting like petulant children, and you're acting like spoiled little brats, and that was a bad look.
They got robbed earlier, a touchdown earlier. As a fan in the stands, it's hard to know if they got it right. Okay, Matthew, that doesn't matter. If you can't throw stuff, we're starting to see more and more videos of people beating the crap out of each other in the stands. I mean, people landing haymakers. We're losing our minds on things like that. Paul.
All right, let's go back to the BetUS caller line. Howard in Oregon. Thanks for your call.
Guys, how you doing? Hey, just think about this. When do the people in power, committees and whatever, and not just sports and politics and anything, do what the people want? In my opinion, it's rarely. But I wanted to just give you kudos, Paul, on your observation about bringing in athletes from different leagues and stuff. Arizona just got a coach that was Mark Few's assistant for years. As a matter of fact, he was supposed to be the heir apparent to Mark Few, Tommy Lloyd. He's famous for doing that, going over to Europe and getting these guys and bringing them to Gonzaga. And, and we've talked about Gonzaga before. It's just a small Catholic school up by Spokane. And, they don't have a football team. And
we know who Gonzaga is. They played Baylor in the championship game. Yeah, we know about their history.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even know where it is, but that's why I mention it. But the thing is that, I'm real excited about Arizona basketball, and I've listened to interviews with that guy, and he's a young guy, and he seems to be really sharp, and I think he's I can't talk about football, we're 0-18, so I got to switch sports to basketball.
Thanks for your call, Howard. Appreciate it.
Howard, thank you very much. All right, we got to take a break and come back with our last guest, Dr. Derwin Gray. He was at Baylor on Saturday watching his alma mater, Brigham Young, play Baylor. He was back again after a trip to DFW to come back to speak to Baylor Athletics, a motivational speaker. His thoughts about many things, from where we are in America to Brigham Young football. Next on Sikkim 365 Radio.
BetUS.com. Look, if you want to bet the NBA, the NHL, the Major League Baseball playoffs, college football, pro football, the PGA, whatever it is, UFC, they've got the action for you. Use our promo code, SICKM125 or SICKM200. When you open an account, 125% bonus on cash, 200% bonus on cryptocurrency. SICKM125 and SICKM200. BetUS.com is the 3-decade leader in betting. Do it. BetUS.com, promo code SICKM125 and SICKM200.
At Allen Samuels in Waco, we're celebrating Ram Power Days, bringing the first truck brand to take the top spot overall in new vehicle initial quality by J.D. Power. With the 2021 Ram 1500 Quad Cab Lone Star, you can get total values up to $6,000 or 2.9% for 72 months, plus $2,000 in bonus cash. All first responders get an extra $500. Come see why Ram wins great awards year after year. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The Sikkim 365 Radio app is sponsored by Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Your friend in the car business at Loop 340 and east of 84. Come by. Let's be friends.
Dr. Derwin Gray, Transformation Church in Indian Land, South Carolina, former Brigham Young football player, Converse Judson under D.W. Rutledge in the NFL with the Colts and Panthers. Today, he was at Baylor for the second time in a couple of days. Man, what a whirlwind, huh? Dallas, Waco, Fort Worth, Waco, the game on Saturday?
Yeah, it's my wife and I have been on an adventure, and it has been awesome. And as a fellow BYU alumni, I want to thank the Baylor community and the Baylor football team for welcoming us to the Big 12 with that physical beatdown. That was very, very impressive by Baylor.
Well,
very impressive.
Not only that, they say, hey, come watch the game. Let's beat your alma mater. But then we want you to come back and give us some inspiration.
Yep, and that's how you know that Jesus is greater than everything. Is that they beat your alma mater, but then you want to come and share. And you know, I'm a Texas native. I'm from San Antonio, so anytime I can come back to my home state, and I'm just grateful that Baylor Athletics wanted me to come in. So I'm thankful.
Well, and you played at Judson. I went to Randolph High School back in the day. I'm much older than you. Yeah, I went to Universal City Randolph, and in fact, when I was there, Judson was still kind of mired in this mediocrity. And you played for Coach Rutledge, correct?
I did. Coach Rutledge is a very, very important person to me, and I'm just so grateful God brought him into my life.
Well, you know, we've had him on before, and I've seen him speak. How much of what you saw when you were younger in high school in what D.W. Rutledge, the Hall of Famer, and his message, how much did that influence you and who you are today?
Everything. Coach Rutledge, what I learned from him was so much more than football. We were very good in football, but that was a byproduct of the things that he taught us. We learned things like sacrifice, discipline, hard work, selflessness, and above all, love. That what you do out of love. And so much of what I say today, so much of what I do today was shaped by my time at Converse Justin High School under his leadership, and now to be his friend. I mean, it's pretty epic. And the older you get, the more you appreciate the people that God brings about through your life. Coaches are very, very important.
You mentioned Brigham Young. You played there eventually in the NFL with the Colts and also Panthers. That was obviously a game in which Baylor kind of willed themselves on Brigham Young eventually. But let's talk about what the Big 12, do you think, being eventually a part of the Big 12 means to alums and former players like yourself?
Yeah, I think BYU being in the Big 12 is going to add, number one, you're going to see a well-rounded academic institution as well as sports, like BYU track and field, cross-country, volleyball, basketball, baseball. I mean, there's so many things that BYU is great at. Then you have the academic prestige as well. And as the Baylor fans saw, BYU fans travel really well. And so I think it's going to add to the Big 12, but also it's going to add to BYU. I think it's going to help in recruiting. I think a lot of the top kids who are Mormon kids are going to reconsider BYU because of the Big 12 influence. So I think it's a great fit for BYU and a great fit for the Big 12.
What did you think about the scene after the game? And it's not the only time or the first time it's ever happened, but both teams, we know the mission statement, both of them at midfield following the game and both having their prayer together.
Yeah, I think that that was really special, and I think it's an opportunity to create dialogue, particularly for those of us who are more Orthodox historical Christians and being able to communicate to, Latter-day Saints or Mormons. There's vast theological differences, but there are some common good things that we can discuss. And I think it's going to be a healthy rivalry moving forward, and I think it can be an example of how to have conversations across traditions.
The picture of you and Dave Aranda, we know what he did at LSU. We know what he's done so far this year, turning around 2-7 after a very difficult year with COVID and not being able to have a chance to really get to know his players and vice versa. What are your thoughts about Dave Aranda?
Well, the first thing is, obviously, you see what takes place on the field and how it's turned around, but I spent a little bit of time with him earlier today, and what struck me is he's very pensive. His words are very measured, very deep thinking, and I would not be surprised if Baylor is a top 10 program coming up really soon, because he's going to start to be able to recruit his guys in. And the great state of Texas has the best high school football players in the country. Now, I'm biased, but I think I'm right.
Other states are doing a lot better, but the commitment to high school football and the athletes, coaching, and facilities is unmatched.
It is unmatched, and so I think as he gets his players in, get more grounded in their philosophy and the things that he's teaching them off the field. Like, I've never seen a college game where there was no penalties.
I know, that was crazy.
I mean, Baylor had no penalties. They ran the ball 44 times for 303 yards and no holding penalties at all. So that's some incredible discipline. And, I think the Baylor fans have something to look forward to. I think the big thing is going to be trying to keep him, because everybody's going to be throwing money at him.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a great fit. I said it kind of reminded me when Grant Tapp arrived in the 70s at Baylor and was there for 2 decades and, of course, is still very much a part of the program. What are your thoughts, Derwin, right now about America? I know you mentioned conscious love is greater than conscious bias. You mentioned that. That's something you spoke about in your video. What are your thoughts about where we are in this country?
So I think where we are is I call it the Jerry Springer effect. I feel like politically it's like watching a Jerry Springer show. It's not really about America. It's about political parties. And then you have media outlets, news agencies that they're like home teams for the left and the right. I just, I'm an adult, so just tell me news. Don't give me a perspective. I don't even need to hear a talk show about it. And so I really feel like we've moved from how do we help America to how do we gain political power and partisanship. And unfortunately, a lot of that is tearing our nation apart. One of the things that I tell our church is I say, if news outlets and if slanted media is causing you to hate your brothers and sisters in Christ, then don't consume it. And I think we need rational, reasonable people to be able to sit down and actually have real conversations without scare tactics, without inflammatory language. Like, I remember the days when Ronald Reagan and the first President Bush, they would have the debates, and even Bill Clinton, they would have debates, and they sounded like adults instead of angry children. And then I also think that we haven't come to terms with the racial issues in our country, that we really need to have a real live conversation and discussion, that it's not about us versus them, that we are the us. We're not the divided states of America. We are the United States of America, and to be united, that requires self-sacrifice on each of our parts. For example, my fourth grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War against the Confederacy. The Confederacy didn't want to be a part of America, and so he fought for what the flag stands for, liberty and justice for all. So there's patriotism blood in me, of what that flag means, and it's liberty and justice for all, not some, but for all. So that requires us to have an all mindset versus us versus them mindset.
Dr. Derwin Gray again, Transformation Church at Indiana, South Carolina. Judson High School, Brigham Young was at Baylor Athletics today. What's it like to meet Scott Drew?
So this is the second time I've met him. He and I spoke at a men's conference together up in Dallas a few months ago, and he is so full of energy. I can see why his players love to play for him. I love the basketball culture he's created, basketball players that look like football players. He was telling me that NFL scouts now come to his practices to recruit tight ends, basically. But I could tell he has a deep love for Jesus, a deep love for his players, a deep love for Baylor. And it's just infectious being around him. And then finally, which may actually be close to almost the most important, is he loves to largemouth bass fish, and so do I. So we got a great friendship going.
What was the hardest decision you had to make in Texas, and was it stopping at Whataburger the easiest?
Yeah, we've already eaten Whataburger. We just finished, actually. And, they don't have burgers like that in the North and South Carolina region. So we had to get some Whataburger up, get me a good, thick vanilla milkshake. And it's just something good about Texas, man. The freeways are big. Everything's big. Flags on the side of the road's big. And my wife loves Texas, especially the old signs that said, don't mess with Texas. Texas is its own country, so I feel pretty good when I get here.
When you look at Baylor, and I know you were at the game and you've been back and forth between DFW and Waco, with what Mack Rhodes brings to the table, what that athletic department, bringing you back to have you speak to them, what does that say about them, and what does that say about you?
I was thoroughly impressed being in Texas and saying, hey, we want to bring you in to talk about unconscious bias, that we really want to make a difference. That's a huge statement that says that they want to value not only the minority kids who come and play sports there, but also for majority culture people too, that when we learn that we have blind spots, it helps us to see. The goal is to grow in our capacity to be a human And another way to say that is what Jesus said, love God, love your neighbor as yourself. When we do that, by God's grace, we become the best version of ourselves. And so for Baylor to take this huge step, it's controversial, it's difficult, but over the years, God has taught me how to navigate those types of things to be able to present a message that people can hear, receive, and go act on it. And so for my wife and I, we've prayed about this for 20 years. We want to spend our lives teaching people how to love. And we believe Jesus has the blueprint for how that happens. And we just want to share that with people. When we die, we want the world to be a better place because of what Christ did in us. And so it's our honor and privilege to be here.
I know the reaction on Twitter from, Kevin Gall and Coach Aranda, among others who were there. They said it was dynamic, explosive in a lot of great ways, and obviously motivational, inspirational. And that's what I've heard about you as well. We appreciate your time, and good luck with your trip all the way back, and hopefully get a chance to speak with you again. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Dr. Derwin Gray, Transformation Church in Indian Land, South Carolina. Converse Judson Rocket, BYU Cougars, and a part of the NFL with the Colts and Panthers on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Thanks to Dr. Gray. We'll have Paul's Top 5 coming up here momentarily. Items of the week at Waco Custom Marketplace. That's for this week. Select choice and prime ribeye steaks from $12.99 a pound up to $22.99 a pound. Last night, I have a cast iron skillet. I have a couple of them. And I put it in the broiler on high. I didn't want to light up the grill. I had been cooking a lot throughout the day, other things in the Ninja or in the smoker. So I didn't want to do that. So I put some things in the Ninja, but I put it on high in the broiler. And I had one of these unbelievably thick bone-in ribeyes from Waco Custom Marketplace, seasoned it a little bit, had the broiler on high where the cast iron skillet was like, you could see it bubbling. It was that high. Put it in there for 7 minutes on one side, 7 minutes on the other side. Came out. I don't like it I like it medium a little bit, a little pink. It was delicious. It was like a reverse sear without it being that way. But their steaks are incredible. Bacon ends for $2.99 a pound. Thin sliced chicken breast for $2.35 a pound. You can cook those and have them, put them in a salad or whatever you want to do with it. Smoked pork tenderloin, which is delicious, at $4.50 a pound. And regular piggy sticks for $2.99 a pound. And the jalapeno cheese piggy sticks for $2.99 a pound. They have the steak box now. As we get closer to the holidays, $100 steak box, $5 off for $95, and that includes all of what you want when it comes to steaks. Waco Custom Marketplace, your tailgate store. They have charcoal, pellets, fuel for what you need, and, of course, all the items you'd want to have anything tailgate at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
It's time for some high school football. Berg Colgin Ford proudly celebrates the Panthers, Cadets, Lions, and all the Central Texas football teams as they march their way through the season and down the field. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Berg Colgin Ford. We'd love to show you our Broncos, Raptors, and Mustangs. These vehicles are winners with their sporty options and designs. Nominate who you think deserves the Built Ford Tough Player of the Week at FordPlayerOfTheWeek.com. Visit us anytime at BKFord.com, making buying your next Ford simple at BK Ford.
Grant Dideker, under the umbrella of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. When you contact people about insurance, and people are hit up with it all the time, what do you tell them? What do you say? I know you say you educate, but Texas Farm Bureau Insurance is obviously successful for a lot of different reasons. And has hundreds of thousands.
It's personal service. Okay. It's one-on-one service. Just yesterday, went to a client's house, met with the couple, went over all the coverages, and they said, wow, we've, never had this before. We've had this different insurance and that different insurance, but we've never had somebody actually come to the house and go over everything with us. And wow, we really appreciate that, especially this day and time where it's just a click of a button and you really don't know who you're dealing with. It's a different person you call every time you call that 800 number. You don't know who your agent is. Now they have a face with the name, and it's more personal service.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. If someone wants to contact you, just straight on your cell phone?
Yep, 254-265-0442.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, a McLennan County agent.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55, presented by Champion Salon and Barber. To book your appointment, go to championsalonandbarber.com.
Whoa. Why does it look all frosty in here?
Is that a gimmick?
Was that a filter?
Well, I guess we got busted what we were doing in the commercial break. Little Snoop
Is that
Dogg
like
action.
coming out of the tunnel at a Miami game back in the day?
You get fried chicken in here. All of a sudden, people just assume things.
It was just the light, the sun hitting the camera.
Oh, okay. I was like, man.
From John Kelly, Paul, real quickly. Y'all are blowing it out of the water today. Excellent show. And a lot of response on Dr. Derwin Gray. We appreciate all of the responses and whoever has an opinion.
All right. Top 5 Coach O replacements. I expect these to do nothing but generate controversy. All right. Number 5, Mike Gundy. Telling you, I know he's kind of nuts. I do, but I kind of think he would work in Baton Rouge. If Coach O worked, a guy who's a better overall coach with a slightly better personality, I don't know about the same personality, but Mike Gundy would work.
He's going to be coming off a Big 12 national championship, too, with what they're doing.
Yeah.
He
said, look, he has the ability to reinvent himself. I think Mike Gundy would be a fit. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really considered him in LSU. I don't know if they would consider him either. But you know what? Even though there's not really anything there to chew on at the moment, I mean, they could do far worse. They could do far worse. And, you know, he doesn't seem to be as on the outs with Oklahoma State as he once was, once upon a time when things did kind of seem like they were getting off the rails a little bit. That seems to have calmed down. But, yeah, I mean, I think Gundy could probably do really well at LSU. You know, he's been super consistent in Stillwater. And, you know, has had some opportunities, I'd imagine, over the years, but is just stuck there. But, yeah, that's an intriguing name. Not one that I that I think is probably realistic from their standpoint, but it'd be interesting.
Donnie Hand, Oklahoma State fan. What? From John Kelly, he's a man. He's 54.
Yes, he is.
He would work at LSU or even Miami. And then from Matthew, I don't think he can kiss enough ass enough to remain at LSU.
And maybe not. Maybe that's the best point so far. All right, and then mind, these are just my people, not. I have no inside information.
Yeah, we've already got the Vegas odds.
Yeah, because people are still angry with you about the women's basketball stuff.
Yeah, they're still I almost nailed that, though.
Yeah.
Number
you
4.
Wish.
Yeah. Number 4, Mario Cristobal. This is the one. This is Mike Scarver mentioned this. This is the top one for a lot of LSU fans. I know it's going to be hard to leave Oregon for a lot of coaches, but I mean LSU. I mean that would be a school that you would certainly go in and leave Oregon. And the way we know that Scott Woodward likes to swing big, Mario Cristobal. Sorry, Miami fans. I know he's an alum, but he's not stepping into the same situation he left when he graduated there. So that coach, whoever Miami hires, needs to understand that there needs to be a top-down rebuild of everything in that athletic department. And they need somebody who there is going to be kind of like Art Briles was here at Baylor and convince people to build a stadium on campus, convince people to do things that made them a modern athletic department.
They're not going to ever leave that stadium, are they?
The NFL stadium, they have to.
Yeah.
They have to. Yeah. They have to. So, but LSU, this is where Mario Cristobal's next logical thing is.
No, I meant at LSU. I thought you were talking about.
I was talking about sorry, Miami fans. Like so Mario Cristobal's not coming there. He will, if he does leave Oregon, he will go to a place that's bigger. LSU's bigger, and in a conference that is the SEC.
Well, I think the good news for Mario Cristobal, even though the good news is not surrounding his football team right now, they had a nice, end of the game win. They looked like they were in trouble last weekend. I mean, but you just wonder if they can keep up with the injuries and whatnot, and if they can, last throughout the season. But one thing's for sure about Cristobal, he is going to get a nice contract this offseason. And it's either going to be from where he already is because of all the interest from the outside, or it's going to be one of those outside interests. But, yeah, he's in store for a payday just because he's going to be rumored not only for LSU but also for USC and also for Miami if that opens up as well. So, yeah, I definitely think he's somebody that has to be considered and somebody I would imagine is on their priority list.
Back to Mike Gundy. He's floated out a few times before. Remember, there was even a little bit of maybe he contacted Baylor. But that's what he's done before, and he's always, if they end up with a pretty darn good team like it looks like they have, if they keep this going, and even if they lose another game or two, he's going to be able to get. He gets like just over $4 million now.
He has adapted. I mean, he's adapted, and that's something that there's some coaches that just can't adapt.
He does a really good job, and at times you wonder they've never been able to quite get above that next level. He's good. He does a good job.
Yeah. I mean, Oregon's they've been close though. I mean, played Florida State for the title a few years back. Haven't quite got back to that level just yet, but that's a good program. I mean, I think it's directly and right at the top of that second tier of non-blue bloods, but certainly elite programs. And so he's in a great spot right now. He's good where he is. He's good if he goes elsewhere, most likely. So certainly he'll be a centerpiece of the whole carousel.
How much does Phil Knight want him to stay there?
Well, here's the other thing about Phil Knight, though. I'm going to say, by the way, Oregon beat Florida State and then lost to Ohio State that year. I'm still in therapy about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But Phil Knight maybe wants him to stay and really likes him. But for Phil Knight, he runs an international athletic brand. If he can get a stronger foothold in a place because he's got a friend, he's a businessman. So I doubt it's going to be as big of a deal as people may think. But if Phil Knight really wants to stay, then he'll stay. I mean, probably because he can ask for that kind of money.
I now remember that Oregon, Florida. Yeah, I got that backwards. But Jameis's weird fumble in the end of the game, and they got away from the Knowles.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook had a fumble in that game. That kind of FSU was close, and then just after that, it was the waterfall of poopy. Number 3, Dan Lanning, defensive coordinator at Georgia.
I like him. I remember the
Kirby
Super Bowl
Smart has said, told him to wait for your spot. I don't know if this is a big enough name for LSU, but that defense at Georgia is legit, and it's because of Dan Lanning. And obviously Kirby Smart's there, but I mean he's a defensive mind. But that's somebody you got to look for, especially in the SEC because they only really like to hire their own for the most part.
Craig mentioned earlier that there aren't a lot of what you'd call the hot young coordinators or the hot coordinators like there was with Joe Brady or even Dave Aranda. He's one of them. He's very solid. And I like how he handled the press conference.
He's one of them, but if you were to ask somebody like, hey, name the top 5 guys right now that would be big-time program replacements, I mean, in other years you can say, oh, there's Tom Herman, and there's this guy, and there's this guy. And, this year it's probably Dan Lanning, and I don't know who else you would really add on to that list, but he's certainly going to get, of course, some long looks this offseason. And there's some other jobs that are going to open up. So
even with Clemson struggling, would it be one of their guys, the coordinators? Could they?
I mean, why now? Why would Venables, for example, leave at this point?
Yeah.
I mean, he's stayed through all the good. Why would he leave when it got bad? But Dan Lanning, I mean, certainly a guy who's on a massive upward trajectory right now.
Well, I mean, Venables, his unit's doing fine. I mean, the defense at Clemson's pretty good with the offense and Tony Elliott, who still, I don't think he's forgotten.
By the way, leave Dan off this discussion, guys, from Surfer Boy 3000.
I get that.
No, I get it. Number 2, Mark Stoops. I know I put him in the USC thing last week. I like Mark Stoops. I'm a big Mark Stoops fan. I bet you he'll also be a candidate at Miami as well because he was an excellent defensive coordinator there. So I like Mark Stoops. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see LSU hiring the Kentucky football coach to be their, big replacement for Edo. I don't know if he's big enough for them, but I mean, he definitely deserves a lot of credit. Georgia eventually just blew their doors off, but they're going to do that to pretty much everybody. But it wasn't in the style of where you were like a Kentucky fan. You're like, oh my God, we're so far away. I mean, at halftime it was a close game, and eventually they separated, but. They're going to do that against pretty much everybody. But, yeah, Stoops definitely deserves some credit. I don't see his name being brought up very much at all in terms of the names that are consistently brought up, but he probably deserves to have a little bit.
I believe his odds were like 20-1, from Vegas. And number 1, I will toot this horn because I think he's an excellent coach, and I think he's ready for the big-time stage. Billy Napier.
He's got the culture down in a way, even though I know there's a difference between where some of the things are in Louisiana, but they've been okay. They had a lot of expectations. That loss to Texas early on, but they seem to have kind of righted the ship again.
He's an excellent coach. He's got a great defensive mind. I think when you are trying to restart yourself in the SEC, it's good to build defense out, but maybe, I don't know. I just like Billy Napier a lot. I think he fits well at LSU, and I think they should hire him. But I know that's probably not big enough for what Scott Woodward's trying to do. And again, the day that Scott Woodward calls me and asks who he should hire is the day that LSU should probably hire a new athletic director. So
they're 5-1, lost to Texas by 20 in Austin.
Yeah, that was a disappointing game because you felt like with their top 25 ranking, and I just felt like that was going to be a closer game than it was. You got to give credit for Texas for just dominating that game, but Napier's a curious guy to me because he is at a school where you would expect he's got to move up at some point here relatively soon. I mean, it would just make sense to. I mean, who just stays at Lafayette? It was great for Louisiana that he's stuck around, but. You just wonder how much longer is that going to continue. And, yeah, I'm sure LSU will at least have, a discussion. He said today in his press conference that he's had no discussions whatsoever with LSU, which is not a surprise because, for one, it just happened. And, for two, he's not going to say even if he did most likely. But, yeah, I mean, the Louisiana ties, I would assume he gets an interview at the very least.
From Randy Tucker, thanks for leaving Aranda off the list. I threatened Paul to punch him in a bad spot.
I'm not worried about that in any way.
It's 0% worried.
Yeah.
No matter whatever's been said.
For what it's worth, Paul, comparing your list, Vegas does have their odds out on the next LSU head coach. And right now, the favorite, Mel Tucker. Lane Kiffin, the second favorite. That just seems crazy to me. But, would you leave Ole Miss for LSU? I mean, maybe, I get that there's other but
oh yeah, absolutely, no, huge difference. Huge.
I get it, but I understand. I know that it's a dumber question the way it sounded than probably the way I intended it to, but it's just weird to me, the whole movement within the conferences and when you've already got something going, but I get it. So Mel Tucker, Lane Kiffin, Luke Fickell, James Franklin, Billy Napier. Those are the top 5 odds choices for the LSU job.
From Carl Adams, that's a great list.
But Stoops is on there, and then there's the others you mentioned.
Carl Adams, will Dave Aranda go to LSU before or after the Baylor Bowl game? Please don't drive tonight, Carl. Be careful. Please, I'm telling you. I'm begging you. All right. Thanks to everyone, Jack McKenzie and Armstrong Sims behind the scene. The guys behind us, you see the names of sponsors, but also there are so many you hear throughout our show every single day.
And tomorrow, I've said it to you, we're going to make a dedicated Big 12 segment and go over the games this weekend and really the ramifications. The Big 12 race is starting to get, pretty clear cut on
tiered.
Yeah, it's starting to get tiered, and now we're hitting the second half, so we'll hit that big tomorrow.
And we hope to have Mac Rose, Baylor Director of Athletics. We have a writer who covers Iowa State. They've got a heck of a showdown with Oklahoma State coming up.
Good win over K-State.
Very impressive win. When we come back again, it's tomorrow at 3 for Armstrong and Jack. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Thank you for watching, listening. Spread the word. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Sikkim 365 Radio, YouTube 365 Sports. Good night.